Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening, is that so? Then let's reveal our cards. At that moment, both flipped over their whole cards. Rinji had the 4 of spades, while Kairari had the 10 of diamonds. Kairari had 3 of a kind, but Rinji had a full house. The win went to Rinji. Barring game. Hand over the chips. Of course. Kairari pushed the small mountain of chips in front of her toward Rinji, handing over the entire 1.4 billion yen. Well then, now that the game's over, I'll be Rinji-kun. Just as Rinji stood up to leave, Kairari suddenly called out. What is it? Kairari didn't say anything more. She simply walked up to him. Life at Shuchin Academy must be dull. As the student council president of Hayaka Private Academy, I'm officially inviting you to transfer to our school. Chapter 258, Excuse me, where's the Love Hotel? Hayaka Private Academy, huh? Sorry, but I'm doing just fine at Shuchin. No need to transfer. Rinji rejected Kairari's proposal without hesitation. What can you possibly gain from such a normal school? Repetitive, ordinary days? Listening to students talk about things you don't even care about? Kairari smiled. Is hiding your fangs in peaceful daily life really what you want? I think someone like you should be in a world where the strong rule everything. You're not me. How would you know what I want? I don't, but I saw you once on the Kengan Association's ship casino. From the look in your eyes, I could tell you were bored with a game you knew you'd win. But at Hayako, you'll never feel bored. That's all I'll say. If you ever want to transfer, you're welcome anytime. With those words, Kairari waved and walked out of the casino. Oh, right. Just as she reached the door, she turned around with a faintly eerie smile. Diamond Ace, Heart 6, Spade 8. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Kairari glanced at the ring on Rinji's finger. You like wearing rings at the poker table. Is that a special habit? Yeah, it's so the goddess of luck will stay by my side. Interesting. After Kairari left, Karura suddenly jumped out of the crowd and pounced on Rinji. Yay! Rinji won. Yeah, there's no way I'd lose. Even if the win was dull, seeing Karura so happy made Rinji smile anyway. This was all thanks to you. Momo stepped forward and said. But her eyes stayed fixed on Karura on Rinji's back, silently wishing she'd get off. It's nothing. I know this kind of money doesn't mean much to your family anyway. Then Rinji seemed to remember something. He gently lowered Karura and walked over to the dealer. Let me see the cards. Sure. The cards hadn't been shuffled yet since the game just ended, so the deck was still in its original state. Rinji drew 3 cards and placed them on the table. They were, Diamond Ace, Heart 6, Spade 8. Momo leaned in and asked, is something weird about those cards? They're exactly what that woman said. Same cards, same order. Rinji put them back in the deck and turned to Momo. Does that woman come here often? I don't hang around my family's casino every day. She shrugged. Made sense. While her dad was a Yakuza boss, Momo was still a high school girl. She only visited now and then. But I have heard she shows up in Kabukicho sometimes, though she usually visits other casinos. And she's not just any ordinary person. I figured. Rinji held the deck of cards. She let me win on purpose. She knew the outcome from the start. What? She returned a 1.4 billion she won from you on purpose. She already knew the deck order when she was shuffling. She knew how it would end from the start. All in poker is essentially a psychological game. Kairari knew the card order. Each player got 1 whole card and 4 face-up cards from the dealer. It seemed like the outcome wasn't decided until the last card was revealed. But in reality, everything had already been determined. And because the whole cards weren't visible, Rinji could manipulate his whole card suit and number but not the 4 dealt face-up cards. Earlier, Rinji's open cards were 7, 4, 4, and 7. That meant no matter how he adjusted the last card, his best result was a full house. His trick was unbeatable, but not omnipotent. And more importantly, This time, he didn't even try to cheat. So Kairari, who knew the deck's exact sequence, was never in danger of losing. She could have played a safer hand after Renji went all in. But instead, she matched the bet, knowing she'd lose. Feigning weakness to bait me into going all in? That was a clever move. You're not actually thinking of transferring to that school, are you? Momo frowned. That place isn't normal. It's a school full of maniacs. You might fit in there, but I still wouldn't recommend it. You know about it? Yeah, tons of students there end up in debt. Momo said. Some girls owe so much they're probably working in shady clubs around here just to pay it off. Their lives are ruined. That's just what happens to gambling addicts. They brought it on themselves. Renji stretched and walked over to Karura. Anyway, I helped you out. Let me enjoy this rare date. Momo, yeah. Thanks for that. She said that, but watching Renji and Karura act so close made her feel anything but happy. You two going on a date in Kabukicho? Yeah. Well, I know some good spots. Momo smiled. Let me take you around. I know this area pretty well. Renji, Senpai, this is a date. Do you even understand what that means? Before he could finish, Karura suddenly got excited. Really? You know this area well? Seeing Karura's eager expression, Momo realized Renji's date wasn't going to go as planned. Which was exactly what she wanted. Of course. If there's somewhere you want to go, just tell me. I'll take you there. Then. Can you tell me where the love hotels are? Sure, they're just. Wait, what? Yup. Karura beamed. I want to take care of everything with Renji today so I can have his baby. Momo. Renji. I should have known. He had been wondering why Karura chose this location. It was because they could easily find a love hotel and get to the main event. Chapter 259, Expulsion Crisis? In the end, they never made it to the love hotel. Although Renji and Karura were in a relationship, when it came to the final step, Renji was exceptionally cautious. With Momo subtly steering things, their baby-making plan ultimately wasn't carried out. In the end, they just had a simple dinner around the area. Karura knew she had to return to her boarding school, and it was late when she finally said goodbye to Renji. She had thought about going to Renji's house to take things further, but he turned her down with the excuse, "We're not 18 yet." Sigh. Watching Karura walk away, Renji let out a long sigh. I could have agreed to any of her other requests. I'd even do a date on the moon. Why is she so obsessed with having a baby? Yeah. Any other guy would have given in by now. You've got some serious willpower. Momo said, standing beside him with a chuckle. Senpai, why are you still here anyway? Renji and Karura hadn't gone to a love hotel or anything. They just walked around the street. It looked like a normal date. Except it wasn't. Momo had tagged along the whole time. What was this? A 3-person date? Didn't your little girlfriend agree to it? Yeah, she did. Since Karura gave her consent, Renji had no reason to object. Still, it felt weird having a third wheel on a date. Don't you have a casino to run? It's not mine. It's my dad's. I only drop by sometimes. Momo said, shrugging. I don't even like gambling. But you like gacha in mobile games. It's the same thing. The only difference is whether you're getting fleeced by the house or by game developers. Either way, you're still the sucker. Say whatever you want. Momo smiled and said to Renji, it's still early. Let me show you some other places around here. It's still early. Renji glanced up at the sky. It was already late, but Kabukicho was still buzzing near midnight. Sure is. Fine then. Sunday came and went. Now it was the dreaded Monday. People went to work. Students returned to school. Since Renji lived in the same apartment building as Shirogane, the two usually left for school together in the morning. Did the date go well yesterday? Not exactly. We ran into Momo-senpai halfway through, and then it turned into the three of us hanging out. Even I know dates shouldn't have a third person. Momo, huh? Both Momo and Shirogane were members in the 66th Student Council. Back then, Shirogane wasn't the president yet, just handling general affairs, while Momo was the treasurer. They had worked together for almost a year. While Shirogane didn't know Momo too well, he had a decent sense of her character. She wasn't someone who would butt in on a date. Unless. At that thought, Shirogane gave Renji a subtle look. What? Nothing. Just realizing your luck with women is better than I thought. The week after the student council election passed like any other school week. The only difference was the wary and fearful glances Renji got from his classmates when he entered the room. Ignoring the stares, Renji placed his bag on his seat and pulled out his textbooks. You really did something outrageous. A girl in the front row turned around with a blank expression. It was Rayon Odora, a classmate of Renji's. They didn't interact much, But he remembered her name from a few chats. So what if I did? It's already done. True. You're not the type who cares about your reputation. Onodorus said calmly. But what made you do it? Can't say. Ding. Just then, the school's PA system came on. Would student Takaman Rinji from Class 1B please report to the principal's office? I repeat, Takaman Rinji from Class 1B, please come to the principal's office. Looks like they're calling you. What the hell do they want this early? Grumbling, Rinji stood up and walked toward the door. As soon as he left, the classroom buzzed with whispers. He got called to the principal's office. Probably about the election stuff. He got into a fight last semester, and now he pulled that stunt. They might actually expel him. The students were full of nasty speculation about Rinji. I object to this. Takaman-kun already reflected on what happened, and besides, there weren't even any actual photos. That USB drive was empty. Miss, I know, this isn't just about whether he reflected. This concerns. Click. Voices of argument came from the principal's office, just as Rinji opened the door and stepped inside. He saw the principal behind the desk, Sagra Kaname standing to the side, and to his surprise, Maiko Ino was there too. Takaman-kun didn't. That's enough, Ino. Ino was still arguing, but Rinji walked up and gently patted her shoulder. Takaman-kun? You can go. I'll handle it. This is my mess. But if you don't leave now, you miss the first class. As the discipline officer, are you really going to skip class? Ino bit her lip, turned, and walked out. This is partly my responsibility too. If someone has to pay for this, I'll take the blame. You're not at fault. After Ino left, Rinji stood before the principal. You wanted to see me? Yes, Rinji. The principal finally put on a stern face. Do you understand what mistake you made? I do. Rinji replied calmly. I shouldn't have taken pictures of you playing Pokemon Go during work hours. Cough cough cough. Chapter 260, Don't Give Him Time Off cough. Rinji, don't say things like that. When did I ever? 34 days ago, at 2:46 p.m., principal, you were walking around the school stadium with your phone, allegedly trying to catch a Pikachu. 52 days ago, at 10:19 a.m., you left Shuchin to visit the nearby supermarket. Because there's a Poke Stop there. How do you know that? The principal started to panic. He didn't think anyone would find out about his secret Pokemon catching activities. You should really be more self-aware. A lot of students here know you're playing Pokemon Go. Rinji said with a grin. Someone even said they saw you lurking outside the girls' restroom trying to catch a Charmander. Alright. Rinji, that's enough. The principal hurried to stop him from talking further. Any more and his dignity as an educator would be gone. Fine, I won't say more. Rinji smiled. Better to keep it under wraps. Shuchin is a century-old institution. If this leaks to the education board, it won't be easy to clean up. By the way, principal, why did you call me here? Well. Clearly rattled, the principal glanced helplessly at Kaname, who had been silent until now. Sagra scratched her head, annoyed. Well. How do I put this? During the student council election, those 2 photos you showed made the students in them unable to show their faces in school. On top of that, you said you'd expose everyone's photos, so their parents teamed up with others to demand action from the school. Basically, after Rinji revealed those slides during his speech, a few students suffered social death and complained to their parents. The parents in turn complained to the school. Those parents, along with some others, were now pressuring the school to expel Rinji. Kids these days are so soft. Sager looked annoyed. Back in my day at Shindai High, the school was a war zone. No one ever made such a fuss. Tough, Sager-sensei, times have changed. The principal reminded him. To be fair, what Rinji did wasn't great, and it drew backlash from some parents. Those same parents also dug up his fight record from the previous semester, calling him a threat to the school. Yeah, this kid's dangerous no matter where he is. Sager agreed. I won't deny that. Rinji said. So, principal, what's your decision? Are you expelling me? Well. Actually, I called you here to discuss exactly that. The principal said, sweating. He had been warned about Rinji's background by Sagra. He didn't want to offend the students' families, but he also didn't dare provoke Rinji or the forces backing him. To be honest, if he had to choose a side, he'd rather side with Rinji. Losing his job was better than losing his life. Fortunately, Sagra assured the principal that as long as she was around, his life would be safe. That was the only reason the principal agreed to call Rinji in for a discussion and try to find a compromise. I don't think there's anything to discuss. Rinji said, waving dismissively. Just give me the list of those parents. In 3 days, the only way they'll be able to file a lawsuit is by mailing it from Africa. Come on, Rinji. Sagra sighed, rubbing her forehead. Stop thinking about driving people away. This whole mess was your fault. Exactly. So I'll handle it myself. I meant you should handle it more gently. This is already gentle. I'm paying for their vacation to Africa. What more do you want? Who knows if you're sending them on a vacation or to face a firing squad. Fine, I'll change my method. Rinji said. I'll just do what they're doing. What they're doing? They complain to their parents to back them up. So I'll complain to mine. Alright, Africa it is. Sagra quickly interrupted. The moment Rinji mentioned getting his own family involved, Sagra had no choice but to give in. If it were just his father, she wouldn't worry too much. The man who once posed a threat to the world had softened up a lot since getting married. He was still a bit eccentric but no longer prone to extreme behavior. But his father's former subordinates, those so-called grandpas, they were a different story. If they thought their precious grandson had been mistreated in Japan, who knew what they might do? The principal cleared his throat and raised his hand timidly. Actually, I have a suggestion. Go on. I could explain things to the parents, and Rinji, you could take a 1-month suspension. That way, the parents would feel like action was taken. Oh? I get a break? I object. Sagra said flatly. Even if those parents rot in Africa, there's no way I'm letting him have a break. Come on, Aunt Kanem, weren't you just saying I should handle things more gently? That's unrelated. My top priority is making sure you finish high school properly. If you get suspended for a month every term, how does that look? TCH. Haha, don't worry, Sagra-sensei. The principal said. It's technically a suspension, but he'll just be attending a different school for a month. It's not a vacation. No vacation? Then those parents are as good as dead. Gah. Before Rinji could finish, Sagra hit him across the head with her black paper fan, knocking him to the floor. Ignoring him, she turned to the principal. A different school? Yes. The principal nodded and took a document from his drawer. It's an invitation letter from Hayaka Private Academy. They're welcoming students from Shuchen for an exchange program. Chapter 261, 1-month exchange Hayaka Private Academy, huh? Rinji's eyes narrowed slightly. Something felt off. Yesterday, he had a gamble with the student council president of Hayaka. Though he didn't want to admit it, his win was barely a win. That student council president, Momobami Kairari, had invited him to Hayaka. He'd refused then, yet today, Shuchen's principal just happened to receive a formal invitation from them. Combined with the pressure from the parents today, everything felt too conveniently timed. Was this all part of your plan, Momobami Kairari? Rinji, did you say something? Principal, do you know someone named Momobami Kairari? Rinji asked. Of course. The principal nodded. She's a big name in Japan's financial world, and the student council president of Hayaka Private Academy. A high schooler with that much influence in finance. This country's really falling apart. Now Rinji was mostly sure. This was all orchestrated by Kairari. According to Momo, she sometimes visited her family's casino, so she probably already knew about Rinji and his connection to Momo. Yesterday's encounter was clearly a pretext to get close to him, and this exchange program had likely been planned since then. Rinji took the invitation from the principal and smiled. Alright, I'll go have a look. That's great. If you agree. Hold on. Just as the principal was about to finalize it, Sagra frowned deeply. I've heard of that school. It may not have as long a history as Shuchen, but it's been around for over a century. Still, the atmosphere there has become questionable in recent years. A school full of gamblers? Of course the atmosphere's messed up. Rinji chuckled. You've heard of it too? I've played a few games with students from there before. All they seem to care about is gambling. Honestly, I don't recommend going. Sagra said bluntly. Rinji had started to behave more like a normal student thanks to Shuchen and the student council's influence. Sending him to a twisted place like that could undo all the progress. When Shirogane became student council president, Sagra had been relieved. It meant one more year of pressure on Rinji to reform. But now, with these meddling parents, everything was thrown off. She totally understood why Rinji wanted to ship them to Africa. When she first heard about it, her own urge was to kick their doors down and dunk their heads in the toilet. But she held back. Even if Rinji was a bit unhinged, his environment had some restraining effect. At least at Shuchen, he hadn't done anything Sagra couldn't tolerate. Hayako, on the other hand, was different. If he went there, she really feared his inner darkness might awaken again. It's fine. Just a different school, and only for a month. Rinji smiled. I'll be back after that. But something still feels wrong. Sagra's unease was only growing. At Hayako, no one could keep him in check. If something disastrous happened, there'd be no fixing it. It'll be fine. Just a little educational visit. Rinji grinned wickedly. Perfect chance to meet those gamblers. So, Rinji-kun, you're transferring schools? No, just a 1-month exchange. In the student council office, all the members were gathered. Besides Shirogane, Kaguya, Ishigami, and Chika, Ino was there too. Shirogane had invited her today. She was now a new member. This is because of that chaotic election speech, isn't it? Sort of. Some parents complained. Rinji said with a grin. And just in time, Hyaka Private Academy sent an invitation. The principal figured sending me there for a month would shut the parents up. That's not the worst solution, I guess. Shirogane frowned slightly. But the reputation of that school. Hyaku and Shuchin had two things in common. Both were prestigious schools with over a century of history, and both had students from political and financial elites. Basically, they were schools for rich brats. The difference was that Shuchin was a normal high school, while Hyaku's policies were anything but normal. Like encouraging students to gamble. Rinji had never heard of any other school that encouraged gambling. At most, gambling would get you detention or expulsion. Honestly, for a regular student, that place would be hell. Shirogane sighed. He couldn't imagine what would have happened to him if he had ended up there. Actually, probably nothing. He never had money to begin with. No money, no gambling. My dad told me about that school before. Chika said. He really doesn't like it. Says the atmosphere is terrible. Maybe we should call it off. Ino said anxiously. If nothing else, I could go talk to the parents with Rinji-kun and ask for forgiveness. Absolutely not. Rinji refused instantly. No matter what their reason was, the fact that they came after me means I already spared them by letting them live. Me apologize? Not happening. No way. But I don't think there's a problem. Kaguya said suddenly. Her expression was different from the others who were worried. You should have more faith in Rinji-kun. Even that school can't do anything to him. Kaguya smiled. If anything, maybe worry about that school instead. Chapter 262, I make the rules Rinji-kun. Secretary Fujiwara, could you stop looking at me like I'm heading off to die? It's just a school transfer. Chika wiped her tears with a handkerchief. But someone like you, Rinji-kun, who trusts people too easily, is going to get cleaned out at Hyaku. Did you forget how your tabletop gaming club lost to me? Fujiwara cheated Chika. I don't have much to give, but here. Take this. Maybe you'll need it. Fujiwara handed Rinji a deck of cards. He took them and opened the box. It was the same magic deck the tabletop gaming club had used to play blackjack with him last time. Though I doubt I'll need this. I appreciate the thought. Rinji put the deck into his backpack. Rinji. Shirogane Miyuki walked up to him and, after a moment of hesitation, spoke. If you run into any trouble, come to us. We might not be of much help, but the student council will always have your back. Thank you. Rinji smiled at everyone who had came to see him off. The entire student council was present. It was Tuesday, the day Rinji was to leave for Hyaka Private Academy. Everyone from the student council had come to the school gate to send him off. He had genuinely felt warmth in this student council. Well then, I'm off. Lifting his backpack, Rinji turned to the group. It's just 1 month. I'll be back right in time for the sports festival and resume student council duties, so Fujiwara, could you stop making that face like I'm heading to the gallows? He finally couldn't take the way Fujiwara looked at him. Like a grieving relative seeing off a death row inmate. But I asked my dad about that school yesterday. It sounds really dangerous. She said, teary-eyed. Don't worry. I'm not going to lose my underwear over there. I'm worried they'll force you into a dress and take embarrassing photos. Goodbye. Though he knew she was just concerned, Rinji didn't want to hear any more of it. Looking over at Ishigami, who had kept his head down the whole time, Rinji figured he was still blaming himself. He stepped up and gave Ishigami a light punch on the shoulder. Let's rank up this weekend. Okay. Sometimes, just a few words are all it takes. No need for anything more. As Rinji walked away, the student council members stood at the school gate watching until he disappeared from view. Hey, little Rinji, I heard what's going on over there. Sounds like you've got some clueless idiots causing trouble again, huh? It's nothing, Grandpa George. Just minor stuff. Walking down the street, Rinji answered his phone. The call was from George, who had somehow caught wind of Rinji's second suspension. Though still in Japan, George had instantly panicked. He had come to Japan specifically to make sure the boss's son wouldn't be mistreated. Yet not even half a year had passed before another incident occurred. How can it be minor? You treat yourself like an outsider too much. George scolded over the phone. We've already traced the families who co-signed that complaint against you. I estimate they'll be bankrupt in 3 days. After that, you can decide what to do with them. They were just being used. No need to deal with them especially." Rinji laughed. "Just ship them off to Africa or the Middle East somehow and let them fend for themselves. No problem. Leave it to your Grandpa George." "Thanks, Grandpa George. You're always so polite, little Rinji." After a few more words, Rinji ended the call and put his phone away. Those families that wanted him expelled were finished, but Rinji didn't have time to worry about such insignificant people. His focus was on tracking down the true culprit behind this incident. He stopped in front of a grand building, looked up at the sprawling high school campus, and smiled. This was Hayaka Private Academy. From here, he could see students in red uniforms. It was the school's standard attire. What struck him as odd was the complete absence of any visible staff. As he stepped onto the campus, a girl wearing the red uniform stopped him. "Excuse me, this is Hayaka Private Academy. Outsiders are not allowed to enter." The girl had long black hair in a side ponytail and wore a stern expression. She looked at Rinji as if she were facing a foreign invader. "Are you the disciplinary officer?" "No. I'm the student council secretary." "A secretary, huh?" He thought of their own secretary, Fujiwara Chika, who was always goofing off. Compared to her, this one seemed rigid and dependable. Just a bit dull. Rinji pulled an envelope from his backpack and handed it to her. "This is an invitation letter from your student council president. I was told I could come here any time for academic exchange." Upon hearing that it was from the president, Kairari Momobami, the girl looked briefly stunned. She quickly scanned the letter and confirmed Rinji's identity. "So you're the student transferring from Shuchen?" "Not transferring. I'm just here for a 1-month exchange. I believe we sent you our school uniform yesterday." She frowned at his black Shuchen uniform. "Why are you still wearing your old school's uniform?" "Didn't feel like changing. It's school policy. Once you're a Hayaka student, you must wear the uniform." "You." Before she could finish, Rinji stepped forward and grabbed her head. "You. Don't take yourself so seriously, little girl." He was smiling, but his voice turned cold. "I didn't come here to become one of you. Take me to see Kairari. Now." "What? Rules here don't matter unless I say they do." Chapter 263, The Greatest Concern. "Mrs. Sagra, here's the donation report from the latest OB meeting. I'll just leave it here." "Alright, that's fine." Shirogane Miyuki placed the printed spreadsheet on Sagra Kaname's desk. Since Rinji wasn't around, Ishigami had temporarily taken over his treasurer duties. After setting the report down, Shirogane noticed Sagra had been distracted for a while, resting her chin in one hand and clicking around on her computer. The screen was filled with articles related to Hayaka Private Academy. "You're worried about Rinji too, aren't you, Mrs. Sagra?" "Yeah, I really am." Sagra leaned back in her chair and stretched. Shirogane took a glance at the screen. The search results listed: students forced into debt and prostitution, gambling encouraged, severe bullying. That's what Sagra had found. "Mrs. Sagra, do you really think Rinji will be okay there?" Shirogane couldn't hide his worry. From what he'd learned, that place was anything but normal. The last thing he wanted was for Rinji to suffer through something nightmarish. "Of course I'm worried. A lot." "Then we should report this to the school, talk to the parents." "Calm down, Shirogane." Sagra watched him grow agitated and interrupted. "It's too late to apologize to those parents. Besides, do you really think Rinji did anything that requires apologizing?" "I don't think so, but don't act on your own. I know you're worried, but this is Rinji's decision. I trust him. At least, I've never once been afraid he'd get hurt." "Got it." Shirogane's expression turned serious. "If anything happens to Rinji, please let me know. He's part of the student council. He's my friend." "I understand." Sagra's expression softened at last. "Rinji has a great friend in you. Don't worry. He'll be just fine." "Alright, I'll get going then." "Go ahead." After Shirogane left, Sagra's face grew stern again. She stared at the screen, clicking her mouse. "Rinji's safety isn't the issue. What we should really be concerned about is that this school might draw out the terrifying malice and madness hiding inside him." "President, I've brought the guest." Inside Hayaka Private Academy, the girl nervously opened the door to the student council office and walked in together with Rinji. "So this is your student council office? Surprisingly luxurious." Stepping inside, Rinji chuckled as he glanced around the room. Luxurious sofas and wooden furniture, a tea table adorned not only with delicate tea sets but also with fresh flowers. The decor leaned toward European elegance, and several expensive-looking paintings hung on the walls. There were 8 people seated inside the office. A boy with glasses, a fashionable-looking girl, a girl reclining on a sofa with an eye patch, another dressed like an idol, one who looked like a child, and a girl in traditional Japanese kimono who kept her eyes closed. At the center stood a masked girl whose face was completely concealed. She respectfully stood beside the student council president. And the student council president was someone Rinji had met once before. Kairari Momobami. Welcome to Hayaka Private Academy, Takuman-san. Seeing that Rinji had arrived, Kairari offered a slight smile and gestured for him to take a seat. Rinji didn't bother with formalities. He pulled out a chair and sat down casually. What's more, he even took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it in front of the entire Hayaka Private Academy student council. You really should welcome me. Those parents who caused trouble for me. You're doing, wasn't it? That would be hard to say. Kairari didn't answer directly. If you don't want to say, fine. I'm not really the kind of guy who needs evidence. Rinji sneered. But if the next pawn you send at me asks me to cover their travel costs, I'll only reimburse them for a coffin. Slam. Before Kairari could respond, a bespectacled boy slammed the table and stood up. He strode up to Rinji, looking down at him condescendingly. Whoever you are, when you're in the student council office, please show some respect. Address the president properly. And no smoking in here. Oh. Rinji removed the cigarette from his mouth and pressed it right onto the lenses of the guy's glasses to snuff it out. You. Before he could curse, Rinji smiled and asked, and you are? I'm Sa. He's Manayuda. A lily-looking girl nearby chimed in with a grin. The treasurer of our student council. Ah, the treasurer. Rinji chuckled. So am I. The treasurer of the student council at Shuchin Academy. I don't care what you were at your last school. This student council isn't some kiddie roleplay. Kiddie play, huh? Rinji smiled again, took a teacup from the table, poured some hot tea into it, and gently placed it in front of Manayuda. Here, fellow treasurer. How about some tea? Are you even listened? Before he could finish, Rinji suddenly grabbed his hair and slammed his face down into the hot teacup. Crack. The cup shattered, scalding tea and sharp shards pressed against his face. Miles per hour. MMPHH. What was that? Not allowed. Called our student council kiddie play? Rinji's eyes were frigid as he ground the guy's face into the broken porcelain and hot liquid. Trying to teach me your rules? You got guts, loser. The rest of the student council was frozen in fear. As for Kairari, she calmly sipped her tea like she hadn't seen a thing. Though I already said this at the school gate, I'm generous enough to repeat it. Rinji's eyes glinted blood red. Your rules mean nothing. Mine are the ones that matter. Chapter 264, What is the Shuchin Student Council President like? Senpai. Rinji grabbed Manayuda's hair and flung him into the wall. He collapsed unconscious, shards of porcelain and tea stuck to his bleeding face. The stylishly dressed girl nearby rushed over to check on him. You bastard. How dare you? She glared at Rinji but froze the moment she saw the blood red, killing intent in his eyes. I've heard that at Hayaka Academy, student hierarchy is determined by gambling. I'm good at gambling too. But why the hell would I follow your rules? Rinji turned his gaze on the rest of the student council members, whose expressions had turned grave. I'm only here for a month. I don't expect us to get along. But I sincerely hope you survive it. Kairari placed her teacup down and addressed the girl behind Rinji. Sakiko, Sumeragi, take Manayuda to the infirmary. Yes. The girl named Sakiko and the one who had supported Manayuda earlier picked him up and left the office. Kairari now stood and walked up to Rinji. Takuman-san, my invitation for you to come here held no ill intent. I don't care what intent you think you had. Rinji grinned. I decide what's malicious. Not you. I see. Actually, my main purpose was to invite you to join the Hayaka Student Council. Her words shocked the rest of the council members. In this academy, becoming a student council member meant joining the ruling class. Outsiders had never been invited, especially not ones who just hospitalized a member. Join the student council, huh? Rinji chuckled without agreeing or refusing. And what does that entail? Nothing in particular. Just do whatever you want. Kairari smiled. That's what this student council is. Well, that does sound fun. Rinji smiled again. Then his expression turned vicious. You know, Kairari, just by asking me to join, you gave me a reason to kill you. May I ask why? Because you think you can make me, Takuman Rinji, serve under you. You've got even more guts than that trash I just beat. You're hard to deal with. I only invited you to let you experience the joy of ruling over others. Even now, Kairari remained composed. Is that so? Then how about you give up your position to me? If Takuman-san wants it, I'd be happy to hand it over. Everyone else was stunned by their back and forth. Their minds began to race, wondering just who this guy really was. I was just messing with you. I've got no interest in your little throne. Rinji turned to leave. Your student council is boring. I don't even want to stay. I'll just roam the school for the month. Don't go dying in front of me. At the door, he stopped and grinned eerily at Kairi. But if you do want to try anything shady, go ahead. I'd love a war with the Momobami clan. Click. The door closed. Everyone was silent except Kairi and the masked girl beside her. President. The kimono-wearing, perpetually squinting girl spoke nervously. Who is that guy? His name is Takuman Rinji. Student of Shuchin Academy. Treasurer of their student council. Eh? He mentioned that earlier too. Said the lily girl with a lollipop. But he went so far in the student council office. Is that really okay? It's not. Kairi said. But there's nothing I can do. Or rather, he's waiting for me to make a move. So he can drag me into hell. Everyone drew a sharp breath. If Kairi couldn't touch him, his background had to be unfathomable. I'm actually curious now. The idle-looking girl said. To handle someone like that, the Shuchin Student Council president must be terrifying. Oh, I've got info on him. Said the lily girl, crushing her candy between her teeth. His name is Miyuki Shirogane. Seems like an ordinary top student. But 2 months ago, he briefly served as acting president of Japan's National Bank. That was the first time he showed his fangs. Caused quite a stir. Wow. No wonder he's not ordinary. They began imagining Shirogane as a king-like figure, surrounded by men in black suits, sitting atop mountains of cash. What do we do about Takuman Rinji then? Let him be. Kairi smiled. This school's been far too dull. A wild card like him will make it more interesting. Besides, I can't stop him even if I wanted to. Her invitation had always been a gamble. And now the school had entered unpredictable territory. Aku. President, are you catching a cold? In the Shuchin Student Council office, Kaguya Shinomiya looked at Shirogane with concern after he sneezed. No, it's nothing. He rubbed his nose, looking distracted. I'm just really worried about Rinji. Chapter 265. This school is not normal. Walking through the grand halls of Hyaku Academy, Rinji immediately drew attention. Everyone wore red uniforms. Except him in Shuchin's black. What puzzled him more was that he hadn't seen a single teacher since arriving. It was like this school didn't have faculty. He'd explored most of the campus, and it was bigger than many colleges. Though it had elementary and middle divisions, the high school section alone was massive. Facilities were top-notch. But not in the academic sense. No, they were built for gambling. Slot machines, betting boards, poker tables, chip exchange counters. You name it. Even classrooms had gambling equipment. To Rinji, this was less a school and more a giant, legal casino. How had it lasted 100 years in Japan without intervention? Since he hadn't met any faculty, he didn't know which class he'd be assigned to. But that didn't matter. He'd just pick one at random. Huh? Isn't that Rinji-kun? Huh? Rinji looked up at the familiar voice. Long black hair, black stockings under the red uniform skirt, and a sweet smile. You're Jabami Yumko? I'm so glad you remember me. She said cheerfully. Of course. You still owe me money. Rinji said. It's about time, isn't it? I was about to earn it, but something unexpected happened. Yumko smiled and pointed to a tag hanging around her neck. On the tag was her name and her bottom rank status. In the center were the characters, Stray Cat. What does that mean? Because I lost a match against the student council, I'm in a debt state now. I owe a total of 3.1 billion yen. You sound oddly relaxed. Don't you feel even a little guilty about owing me money? Rinji frowned. Your 1-year deadline is almost up. I haven't charged you a single yen in interest all this time. More generous than any bank. You could at least try paying faster. Of course. Don't act so carefree. If the deadline comes and you haven't paid, I'll have to dig out your organs and sell them on the black market. Rinji said flatly. I may not care much about the money, but it's a matter of pride. I can't allow someone who owes me to live freely out in the world. Naturally. I'll repay what I owe you on time. Yumko still wore her innocent smile. She probably believed Rinji would kill her if she missed the deadline, but she didn't show the slightest sign of fear. Maybe she was just that confident in her gambling skills. By the way, what brings you to Hyaku Academy, Rinji-kun? Don't tell me you came just to collect the debt? No. Honestly, if I hadn't run into you, I might have forgotten you even owed me. Rinji glanced back the way he came. I got tricked into coming here by your student council president. Oh. That student council president. Yumko's expression twisted into something darker. I've always wanted to gamble with her. Pay me back first. Otherwise, you won't live long enough to gamble with her. Got it. Then, looking curious, Yumko asked, since you're here, which class did you get assigned to? No one assigned me to any class. I figured I'd just pick a room at random. Why not join our class? We're in year 2, class Hannah. I'm sure we'll have a great time together. Just seeing your gambler face is enough to ruin my day. There's no way I'm joining your class. Wearing a look of disdain, Rinji brushed past her, planning to pick a class at random. He never intended to get along with anyone in this school. Even though Rinji was technically a first year, he had no intention of heading to a first-year classroom. If he was choosing at random, the year didn't matter. Since Yumko was in class Hannah, he walked into the room next to hers. Year 2, class Tsubaki. Without knocking or announcing himself, Rinji opened the door and walked in. The classroom was buzzing. Not from chatter, but from gambling. There weren't many elaborate setups. Most students had pushed 2 desks together to play poker, Texas Hold'em, blackjack, and others. Occasionally someone would slam the table or shout in excitement. Are these people really high school students? Rinji, holding his school bag, looked around at the uniformed students who looked more like seasoned gamblers. He spotted an empty desk in the back corner and placed his bag there. The desk was vandalized with insults and scribbles, but Rinji didn't care. Seeing that everyone was too engrossed in their games to notice him, Rinji pulled out his phone. Members of his own student council were asking how he was doing at this new school, clearly worried. Reading their messages made Rinji smile. He typed, "Thanks for your concern. Everything's fine here. No need to worry." After sending the message, Rinji thought it might be a good idea to show them the ugly side of this school, so he opened his camera app to take a photo of the classroom. Basically a mini casino. The student council back home would definitely be shocked by the sight. Just as he aimed his phone toward some of the gambling students, someone stepped in front of him. Rinji lowered his phone. In front of him stood a petite girl with a timid expression. She had the same stray cat tag as Yumko. Something wrong? That's my seat. She spoke in a quiet voice, as if scared of something. Chapter 266, Violence appears. That's my seat. Ah, I see. My bad. Rinji picked up his bag and stood. Her timid eyes made her stand out from the rest of the classroom. She clearly wasn't one of the hardcore gamblers. Finally, someone in this school who didn't look like they deserved a punch. Her tag had her name on it. You're Nanami Tsubame? Yes. Her voice was so soft it sounded like she was afraid of him. I see. Nanami, is there any empty seat around here? I just transferred in as an exchange student today and I'll get one for you right away. Wait. Before he could finish, Nanami had already rushed out of the room, seemingly to fetch a desk for him. Given how small she was, it'd probably be tough for her to carry a desk. Looks like there are some helpful people in this school after all. Not everyone's a degenerate gambler. That's a bit of a relief. Rinji nodded to himself and began wandering the classroom. Most students were still absorbed in their games, but a few who'd finished began to notice the unfamiliar uniform Rinji was wearing. Hey, where are you from? Shuchin Academy. Shuchin? What are you doing at Hyako? Beats me. Your student council president. Kairari Momobami, I think. Tricked me into coming. The president invited you? The whole room went quiet after that comment. Once they heard he was invited by the president, everyone shifted their focus to Rinji. Of course, in that brief moment, a few sneaky students took the chance to swap out their cards. So fast that even Rinji was impressed. So this school didn't just have gamblers. It had cheaters too. Yeah. That crazy woman dragged me here from Shuchin. Probably for some stupid reason. Everyone looked shocked that he would speak so bluntly about their revered president. Rinji didn't care. Anyway, from now on, I'm one of your classmates. Let's all try to get along. Or don't. Either way is fine. What should we call you? Just call me Rinji. Alright, Rinji. A few friendly students came up with smiles. Are you good at gambling? Yeah, since the president brought you here, you must be amazing at it, right? No. I hate gambling. Rinji said. The air in the room changed. Their eyes were full of disdain. Apparently, not being good at gambling was a mark of shame here. Rinji couldn't care less what they thought. He never planned on fitting in. Their opinion of him was meaningless. He thought about sitting down to play with his phone again, but remembered he didn't have a desk yet. Nanami hadn't returned. Nanami's taking forever. He figured it was tough for such a small girl to carry a desk, so he stepped out to look for her. Halfway down the hall, he realized something. Damn, I forgot to ask her where to get a desk. Just as he turned around, he spotted Nanami through a hallway window. She stood trembling, unsure what to do. A desk lay on the ground beside her. 3 boys blocked her path, sneering. What? What do you want? You really don't know? One of them laughed. The other 2 followed. You haven't paid us this month. I gave it to Mitoto already. Nanami said, frightened, backing away. That was his share. Where's ours? I have no money left. Then scam someone. Or get into compensated dating. One of them snapped, grabbing her collar. You're livestock. Act like it. Do what you're told. Their laughter grew as Nanami's face twisted in fear and helplessness. Many students stood around watching. Not one tried to help. Some even snickered. This was Hyaka Private Academy. A school of madness. But. Smack. Nanami tried to speak, but one of the boys slapped her. Get the money or I'll sell you to a brothel. The pain and hopelessness made her shut her eyes. Tears rolled down her cheeks. This school was pure despair for her. What are you standing around for? Move. Before he could finish, a hand grabbed his wrist mid-swing, stopping him cold. He turned around, annoyed. The hand belonged to a student in a black uniform. A guy. Probably. Hey, you're... Nanami, thanks for bringing my desk. Rinji let go of the boy's wrist and walked to Nanami's side, lifting the desk. Sorry for making you do that. I should have known it was too heavy for you. No, I didn't. Hey. The boy was clearly displeased with Rinji's interruption. He grabbed Rinji by the collar and shouted, Who the hell are you? Can't you see I'm talking to this livestock here? Rinji didn't respond. He silently set the desk down, pulled a ballpoint pen from his pocket, and removed the cap. Hang in there, classmate. Huh? Ah. With a scream, Rinji drove the pen straight toward the boy's eye. Chapter 267. I want everyone to quit gambling. The boy who'd just been stabbed in the eye fell to the ground, crying out in pain and rolling around. The intense pain made him scream uncontrollably. Rinji stood there coldly watching, ignoring the terrified stares from the other students. This school only filled him with disgust. With no Sagrakka name, no student council, and no Ihai Asaka here, the cruelty buried in Rinji's heart was no longer restrained. You actually hurt someone. Shut up. As the other 2 boys tried to question him, Rinji's crimson eyes filled with killing intent. If you don't want to lose both your eyes. His words made them step back instinctively. The bloodstains on his black uniform, the red eyes, and their friend on the ground clutching his face, screaming in agony. It all left a deep psychological scar. They were terrified. Rinji stepped forward and stomped on the face of the still screaming boy, silencing him with sheer pressure. Listen up. Ever since I set foot in this gambling-addicted school, I never intended to make friends with any of you. I don't need your approval. I just want your fear. With that, he kicked the boy in the head, knocking him out. Take him to the infirmary. Leaving those words behind, Rinji picked up his desk and walked back toward the classroom. The students who had stood by and watched as Nanami Tsubame was bullied were frozen in place. None dared to help the injured boy. Even Nanami was terrified of Rinji's actions, but for some reason, after only a moment of hesitation, she followed him. Thanks, Nanami. But carrying a desk must have been tough for you, right? Rinji placed the desk back in the classroom and turned to the girl who'd followed him. No. I should be the one thanking you. Nanami bit her lip and said softly, Thank you for saving me. So, do those students always bully you like that? At Rinji's question, she seemed to recall something painful. She clenched her teeth and nodded. Because. In this school, I'm livestock. So I deserve to be bullied. Deserve? Huh. Rinji realized this school's problems were worse than he thought. He glanced at the students still gambling and turned back to Nanami. Do you have time? Can you show me around the school? I have a few things I want to ask. I'd be glad to. Nanami guided Rinji around campus. No one seemed interested in sports. Everyone was addicted to gambling. According to what he'd learned earlier, only those good at gambling were accepted in Hyaka Private Academy. They passed by students wearing placards around their necks. Both boys and girls. All looked miserable and submissive. Eventually, they reached the school rooftop. Looking out over the campus, Rinji pulled a cigarette from his pocket and placed it in his mouth. Actually, I've been meaning to ask. He took a puff and pointed to the placard around Nanami's neck. What does that sign mean? This is the symbol of livestock, she explained. Students who fail to regularly pay tribute money to the student council are designated as such. The lowest-ranking 100 students are labeled uncooperative by the student council. They are forced to wear placards showing their rank and title. Boys are called stupid dogs. And girls are called stray cats. Livestock are treated harshly in school. Any resistance is met with retaliation from the student council. To shed the title, one must pay a special fee of 1 million yen. The student council has that much power? Rinji was stunned. Don't the teachers intervene? You hardly ever see teachers here. There aren't even many classes. Nanami shook her head. And even the staff can't oppose the student council. It's the rules. That's insane. Her hands trembled as she clutched her skirt. My family isn't wealthy. I can't afford the tribute. That's why the student council labeled me as livestock. I'm not allowed to resist regular students. No one helps me. And if I fight back, they come for me. Livestock have no human rights here. She once had beautiful long hair, but after being labeled as livestock, students bullied her, cut her hair short, and routinely beat her. Even the little money she had would be stolen. No one helped her, simply because she was livestock. You've had it rough. It must be unbearable in this gambling-obsessed school. Rinji felt a strange sense of gratitude toward Sagrakane. Thankfully, she didn't send him to this school. If he had ended up at Hyaku instead of Shuchen, there might not be any survivors left. Even though his gambling skills and tricks would make him unbeatable and worshipped here, he didn't want worship. He only wanted fear. If the student council divided students into humans and livestock, then Rinji saw everyone here as livestock. Thanks for answering my questions, Nanami. Now for the last one. He flicked away the cigarette and turned to her. Do you like gambling? No. For the first time, Nanami dropped her submissive tone. Her face showed nothing but disgust. I hate gambling the most. That's the answer I was hoping for. Rinji snapped his fingers and patted her shoulder, giving her a thumbs up. I'm planning to start a quit gambling club at this school. I want to help students stay away from gambling. Nanami, I hope you'll join me. Let's drive all the gamblers out of this school within a month. Chapter 268, Respecting Tradition. Where did the president go? She left by helicopter around noon. Said she had something to deal with. Answered a girl with a side ponytail named Sayaka. Her full name was Igarashi Sayaka, student council secretary at Hyaku Academy and someone fairly close to the president, Kairari Momobami. She left now of all times? And just when someone very interesting showed up. A petite girl with a childish voice and striped thigh-high socks chimed in while playing her handheld console. This was Yamazaki Rana, the most unpredictable member of the student council. She always wore cute hoodies and never let go of her console, even during meetings. I actually think the new guy's kind of interesting. His name's Takemin Rinji, right? The short-haired girl leaning back in her chair didn't seem afraid of Rinji at all. She wore an eye patch. Not out of Chayunabu, but because she literally had no eyeball. With shoulder-length hair, a giant bow, and piercings on her face and tongue, she was named Ikishima Midari, head of the Beautification Council, which was essentially the school's disciplinary committee. Aren't you scared of him? I think he's terrifying. The one speaking in a cute voice was a twin-tailed girl with star-shaped pupils. This was Yumami Yumamite, the student council's PR officer and also a popular idol. He's so violent. He beat up Manny Utakun the moment he got here. So scary. As she said this, the bandaged-up Manny Utak frowned. It was the student council treasurer and the guy Renji had beaten up earlier. Now wrapped like a mummy, he adjusted his glasses and said sternly, the student council represents supreme authority at this school. Yet Takemin Renji assaulted a council member, and the president hasn't even responded. Is she scared? The president would never be scared. Sayaka quickly retorted. Then is she okay watching one of her members get attacked? That's a pretty pathetic president. His tone was thick with sarcasm toward Kairari. In the corner, a long-haired girl in a kimono with closed eyes said nothing the entire time. She was Nishinoto Inuriko, student council member and head of the traditional culture club. She feared Kairari. And also feared Rinji. She believed both of them possessed a madness beyond normal comprehension. These were the student council members present. Rinji's arrival had disrupted the original balance of the school, forcing them to consider their next steps. But every one of them had their own agenda. The student council of Hyaku wasn't nearly as united as it seemed. Anyway. Face still wrapped in bandages, pushed up his glasses. I believe Kairari is failing as president. Not only does she ignore the council's authority, she even let a lunatic like Takemin Rinji in from the outside. Click. Sounds like someone just called my name. Mid-meeting, Rinji suddenly burst through the student council room door, strolling in like he owned the place. Some members immediately went on guard. Rana kept playing her game. Midari, on the other hand, looked at Rinji with interest. Without paying attention to the mixed expressions of the student council members, Rinji pulled out a chair and sat down right in front of them. Takemin Rinji, why are you here? Sayaka frowned and asked. Rinji didn't answer her question. Instead, He glanced at the others and asked, "Where's Momobami? Where did that girl go?" The president had some urgent matters to attend to. "She's not at school for now." "Oh. Not at school, huh?" Rinji nodded as if he understood, then looked around at the student council members. "So with the president gone, who's in charge now?" "The vice president." "And where is the vice president?" "She isn't here either." The vice president, usually seen standing beside Momobami Kairari, was a long-haired girl who always wore a mask. But today, she was nowhere to be found. "Not here either? Then who's running things now?" "I am," said, pushing up his glasses. This wasn't officially decided by the student council, of course. It was a self-appointed decision he made on his own. "And who are you again?" "I don't remember there being a mummy in the student council." "I'm Manayuda." His tone was irritated. Though he was furious, he didn't dare act out. He absolutely didn't want to get beaten up by Rinji again. "Oh, you." Rinji suddenly grinned. "Since you're in charge, I've got something to discuss. I want to establish a club, and I heard that needs approval from the student council." "What kind of club are you trying to set up?" "An anti-gambling club." Anti-gambling? Everyone in the student council was stunned by Rinji's words. At Hayaka Private Academy, a school where gambling is everything, he wanted to create an anti-gambling club? Yup, the anti-gambling club. "So I need you to sign off on this document," Rinji said, placing the application form in front of him. Stared at the form in silence. Sayaka looked at Rinji and couldn't help but say, "It's impossible to establish an anti-gambling club in this school." "Oh?" Rinji raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" "Gambling supremacy is a rule set by the president. Even before she took office, gambling has been the school's tradition. An anti-gambling club is." "Oh. Tradition, huh? I see, tradition." Rinji chuckled and stood up, strolling around the student council table while nodding as if he were admiring something. His actions made the student council even more tense. "If it's tradition, then I guess it can't be helped. If you understand Bang. Before Sayaka could finish her sentence, Rinji suddenly slammed a handgun onto the meeting table. It was a real gun. They could tell at a glance. "Everyone, I have a tradition too." Rinji's mouth curved into a cruel smile. "My tradition is this. Once I make a decision, anyone who says no gets a bullet in the head. I respect your traditions, so I ask that you all." Looking at the color draining from their faces, Rinji's grin turned maniacal. "Show some respect for mine too. How about it?" Chapter 269, The Anti-Gambling Club is born. Does the desk go here? Anywhere is fine. Not like we have many members anyway. After securing an empty classroom as their base, the Anti-Gambling Club was officially established. Current members, Takuman Renji and Tsubumi Nanami. Normally, a club with only 2 people wouldn't be approved. But at Hayaka Private Academy, there was a rule. You could earn anything through gambling. If you beat even a single student council member in a gamble, no matter how ridiculous your club was, it could be approved. Of course, Renji didn't beat anyone in a gamble. He simply threatened them. As he put it, "I didn't come to ask your opinion. I came to get the paperwork done. I want to hear one word, yes. Say anything else and I'll send you to the afterlife." Maybe it was that defiance of all norms. His arrogant madness. That scared enough to sign off on a club. He didn't have a choice. There was a gun to his head. Nanami finished hanging a sign labeled Anti-Gambling Club on the classroom door and walked over to Rinji. "It's done. Alright, then from this moment forward, the Anti-Gambling Club is officially active." Rinji smiled as he sat behind an office desk pieced together from several student desks. "I'm the president, and Nanami, you're the vice president. It's just the 2 of us for now." "Yes." Nanami blushed slightly as she nodded. "So, president, what should we do next?" "Simple. The goal of our club is to help students quit gambling," Rinji said as he stood up. Many students labeled as livestock by the student council ended up that way because they couldn't pay the mandatory dues. But a large portion fell into debt through gambling losses. I believe most of them never wanted to gamble in the first place. In this school, the only way to stop being livestock is to gamble your way out. My idea is help them pay off their debts. Eh? Nanami was stunned. Pay off their debts? That's right. You mean lending them money? No, giving it to them. For free? For free. But they'll have to sign a lifelong anti-gambling agreement and a withdrawal form. Isn't that just giving away money? Nanami asked, clearly worried. Some students owe tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of yen. That's pocket change. True anti-gambling means guiding them with both reason and compassion. For those who sincerely want to quit, our anti-gambling club must provide them care and support. Rinji said with a smile. That's what I call charity. You're so kind, Takman-kun. Reina's eyes sparkled with admiration. She had strategically ignored the fact that he previously stabbed a student in the eye. To her, Rinji was a hero. Someone who saved her and the other suffering students. What about those who can't pay the student council dues in the first place? Some students, like herself, came from ordinary families and were turned into livestock simply because they couldn't afford the exorbitant dues. Just like how a place like Shuchin Academy might have a rare student like Miyuki Shirogane among the rich elite, Hayato also admitted ordinary kids hoping to rise in status. Or their parents just wanted them to connect with influential people. There were plenty of delusional families like that. We can bring those students into the anti-gambling club. Rinji replied. As long as they join us and truly quit gambling, they're family. And the student council won't dare ask us for a single yen. But the student council. If you're going to say they have power, don't worry. Their power is nothing compared to mine. Rinji patted Nanami's shoulder reassuringly. They won't dare ask us for dues. Unless they don't value their lives. Understood. Reina nodded. While Rinji's words were extreme, for some reason, she trusted him completely. It was as if he could do anything. Then. What about the ordinary students? She asked. The ones doing well here. How do you convince them to quit gambling? Simple. Give them a lesson they'll never forget. Rinji's smile turned sinister. Like losing a hand or a leg because of gambling. Or maybe even their life. Knock knock knock. Rinji looked toward the door. It hadn't even been long. Someone was already here. Come in. Click. The door opened slowly and cautiously. In walked a beautiful girl with glasses, looking visibly nervous as she glanced at Rinji and Nanami inside. Excuse me. Is this the anti-gambling club? She asked softly, her eyes shifting back and forth between them. Oh? So soon and someone already wants to quit gambling? Rinji sat upright and smiled warmly. Welcome. I truly admire your decision. And I assure you, you'll be grateful for this choice in the future. My name is Nuraba Iam. The girl introduced herself quietly. I just came to see if I could get some help or something. Help? Absolutely. Rinji smiled again. Staying away from gambling is good for anyone. So what can we help you with, Nuraba-san? I owe someone money. But I don't know what to do anymore. Tears welled up in Naom's eyes, and her words became choked and confused. Because I owed a classmate money, she kept forcing me to gamble to repay it. And the more I gambled, the more I owed. I wanted to quit, but I couldn't. Then she said if I couldn't pay, she'd introduce me to greasy old men. That I just had to spend a few nights with them to pay it off. I don't want that. I even thought about ending my life, but I didn't have the courage. When I saw the anti-gambling club sign, I wondered if maybe I could get help. But. Sorry, I was naive. I shouldn't have come. Slap. She spoke quickly and was about to leave. But in the next moment, Rinji suddenly threw 2 thick stacks of cash onto the table. Judging by the thickness, it was a full 10 million yen. Iam looked at Rinji in shock, while Rinji smiled and said, our club welcomes all students who want to quit gambling, and we're willing to provide all necessary assistance, including paying off debts. Chapter 270. This is a matter of life and death. In a second-year classroom, a group of students was gambling. Nana-san, it seems like you've won quite a bit again today. Yeah, that poor guy just lost another 3 million yen. As expected of Nana-san. You're amazing. In the classroom, several girls surrounded a beautiful girl with long straight black hair, constantly offering flattering words. That's how this school always was. Students good at gambling were admired by others. One of the girls smiled and asked, Iam's already lost 10 million yen to you, right? Can she really pay it back? No need to worry. Nana gave a graceful smile. I've already found some buyers. A few greasy middle-aged uncles really like Iam. If she entertains a few more clients every night, the money will be paid back in no time. Nana-sana, you're so kind. The girls giggled, showing no sympathy for their classmates' situation. Bang. The classroom door suddenly opened, and Nuraba Iam stepped in gracefully. She was immediately noticed by the girls who had been talking. Nana saw it was Iam, stood up with a smile, and said, Iam, how about one more bet? As she said this, the girls beside her secretly laughed, knowing Iam was about to be humiliated again. Iam gritted her teeth and gathered her courage. No, I'm not here to gamble. Huh? Nana's smiling face turned cold. Hey, what do you mean? I'm giving you a chance. Owe me money and now you're disobeying? This is your shot at a comeback. Though fear lingered in her heart, Iam shoved Nana aside and threw several stacks of cash on the table. A full 10 million yen in cash. What? I'm not gambling with you anymore. Iam said loudly. I've paid you back, so don't bother me again. Where did you get that kind of money? Nana's expression darkened. She had counted on Ayam being unable to repay, forcing her into deeper debt and despair. There was no way Ayam could produce 10 million yen. Let alone 10 million, even 1 million was out of reach. Where had she gotten it? It was from me. Just as Ayam was about to answer, Rinji appeared behind her, carrying a briefcase. Nana noticed him too. Dressed in a black uniform that didn't resemble the school's, with golden hair and a clean, attractive face. A beautiful boy. You lent her that money? No. Rinji smiled. I gave it to her. Consider it me helping pay her debt. Nana froze. Her first thought was that Ayam had sold herself to him. After all, what was the difference between this and compensated dating? But then again, this was a good-looking boy. If it were real clients, they'd be fat, greasy, balding old men. And he casually handed out 10 million. This kind of person. TCH, Ayam luck is unreal. Though she thought so, Nana didn't show it. After all, the boy in front of her was not only rich but handsome. Best not to offend him. She tucked a lock of black hair behind her ear and smiled. My name is Nana Oatori. And how should I address you? Takuman. Rinji didn't give a full name. He pulled out a chair and sat across from her. President of the anti-gambling club. Anti-gambling club? Nana looked confused. She thought she'd misheard. How could there be an anti-gambling club in a school where gambling was everything? Would the student council even allow it? Relax. The student council approved it. Rinji smiled. Actually, I came here because I have something to discuss with you, Nana. You need help with something? No. I just want to have a couple of games with you. Rinji smiled, placing the briefcase on the table. He opened it, and everyone in the classroom stared, wide-eyed. It was packed with bundles of 10,000 yen bills. This is funds. Not much, just 500 million yen. 500 million. To Nana, that was an astronomical amount. She bullied Ayam all semester and only earned 10 million. With this kind of money, she could easily enter the student council. She swallowed hard and smiled at Rinji. Well, I don't have enough funds to match that. You don't need to. This is just for fun, no entry requirements. Besides, 500 million isn't a big deal to me. Rinji grinned. This is my first day at Hyaku Academy. I'm not very familiar with the gambling here. Nana began thinking. Rinji clearly looked naive and new to the school. He probably didn't understand how cruel this place could be. And he seemed rich and good-looking. If she could make him her boyfriend, that'd be a huge win. But she glanced at Ayam. Damn it, she got to him first. Then there's only one option left. Nana gave a sweet smile and took out a deck of cards. How about blackjack? Minimum bet, 10 million. Sure. The game began. Ayam shuffled the cards while keeping her eyes on Rinji. She wasn't really shuffling. She wanted to see if Rinji would notice. When he didn't react at all, she was sure he had no clue about cheating techniques. Let's begin. Nana acted as the dealer. She placed one face-down card and gave Rinji 2 cards, 7 of spades and 5 of hearts. Her visible cards were 7 of hearts and 9 of hearts. Takuman, would you like to hit? Hit. All right. Nana smiled and prepared to draw a card. But the moment she did, Rinji suddenly pulled a small knife from his pocket and stabbed it forward. Ah! Nana's pretty face twisted in pain and she screamed as her hand and the deck were pinned together with the knife. Blood soaked the cards. The card she had tried to draw was the second card from the top. With a cruel smile, Rinji grabbed her head. Little girl, did you think I wouldn't touch you just because you're good-looking? Let me tell you, once you sit at the gambling table, it's no longer just about winning or losing. It's about life and death. Chapter 271, Secret on the Blade Second Deal. A common cheating trick in gambling. It refers to skipping the top card and drawing from the second one. The dealer memorizes the full deck order and decides whether to draw the top or second card depending on the situation. This gives them full control of the game. Nana had used a fake shuffle to keep the memorized order and decided when to draw which card. The students were stunned as Rinji used a knife to pin her hand and the deck, exposing her trick. Nana's forehead dripped with sweat from the pain. Her face was twisted, but Rinji just kept smiling. Did you think I didn't see your cheap tricks? Maybe you can fool newbies, but trying to fool me is a fantasy. As Nana cried out in pain, Rinji pulled the knife out and set it aside. Please deal properly, Nana. Rinji smiled. If it happens again, it won't just be your hand. This knife will go through your heart. Nana clutched her bleeding hand, her hateful eyes mixed with fear. This was probably the first student she'd met who injured someone so mercilessly. Rinji had no thoughts of sparing her just because she looked good. Anyone who stood in his way was just an obstacle to be crushed. Receiving a bandage from a friend, Nana wrapped her wounded hand. Her eyes burned with fury as she looked at Rinji. She had now decided to utterly destroy this boy who scarred her, make him a house pet. But she looked at her current bet. Only 10 million yen. Meanwhile, Rinji had casually put up 500 million. If she lost, she'd owe 500 million immediately. This was the power imbalance caused by unequal funds. The one with more money had an overwhelming advantage. Calm down. If I win this hand, I'll have 500 million yen. Getting into the student council won't be a dream anymore. In other words, one match would decide everything. As long as she won, she could not only escape but also gain a huge sum of money. He didn't tell me to reshuffle the cards. That's your biggest mistake. Nana hadn't reshuffled the deck, which meant the current card order still favored her. Even if Rinji played fairly, his chances of winning were very low. Rinji shook the blood off the small knife in his hand and handed it to Ayam behind him. Wipe this off for me. Yes. Ayam quickly took the knife. Honestly, the blood on the blade made her a little afraid, but strangely, she didn't feel too repulsed. In fact, a strange sense of excitement stirred within her. She shook her head to push away the odd feeling and took out her handkerchief to clean the blade. As she wiped away the blood, she noticed something unusual. When wiping the blade, she felt a bumpy texture, like an engraved pattern. Once the red stain was completely removed, a delicate pattern, resembling a magic circle, appeared on the blade. What is this? While Ayam was still focused on the knife, the match between Rinji and Nana continued. Rinji currently had a 7 of spades and a 5 of hearts. Nana had a face-down card and a 9 of hearts. Of course, Nana knew her face-down card was a 7 of hearts. That's 16 points on my end, and 12 on his. The next cards are 8 of diamonds and 4 of spades. If played normally, it's a draw. Since she couldn't cheat anymore, Nana began carefully planning her next move. And after that comes an ace of spades, 9 of hearts, 10 of diamonds, and 3 of hearts. If dealt in order, I'll hit blackjack. That means I win. Even though her hand was still throbbing in pain, a smile spread across Nana's face. It was like the 500 million yen was already calling her name. She looked at Rinji and said, "This is tricky. If I lose, I won't be able to pay the 500 million yen. That's fine." Rinji smiled. "You can pay with your life." "What?" "If you owe a debt, you have 2 choices. First, try to gather 500 million yen within 1 year. Second, just die. Once you're dead, your debt is cleared. I won't charge your family anything." As Rinji spoke these terrifying words, his fingers tapped rhythmically on the table, putting immense psychological pressure on Nana. "So, treasure this moment." Nana gritted her teeth. She knew the only way to escape this lunatic was to win this match. "Takuman, do you want to hit again?" "Of course." Hearing this, Nana drew the top card and handed it to Rinji. Because Rinji had pinned a deck to her hand earlier with a knife, the card now had some blood stains and a hole in the middle. But it wasn't a big issue, the number was still visible. Rinji's new card was an 8 of diamonds. 7 plus 5 plus 8 equals 20. Seeing everything unfold exactly as planned, Nana breathed a sigh of relief and asked with a smile, "Would you like to hit again, Takuman?" She already had the answer in her heart. No sane person would hit at 20. Most people stop at 18. However, Rinji said immediately, "Hit." "What? Didn't you hear me?" Rinji repeated. "I said hit. Deal me another card." Nana was stunned at first, then ecstatic. The next card was the 4 of spades. Drawing it would mean going over 21. Busting. She would win. Even with her injured hand, 500 million yen was more than worth it. Without hesitation, she dealt him the card. But as the card was revealed, she froze. It wasn't the 4 of spades. It was an ace of spades. Exactly 21 points. "I win. I win, Nana." Rinji stood up and looked down at the stunned Nana. "Now, it's your turn to make a choice." Chapter 272, Shut the door. Nana was absolutely sure Rinji had cheated. But she had no idea how, because he had never touched the card order. The blood stains and knife holes were clear evidence that this was the original deck she had prepared. How did he manage to switch cards without touching them? With no proof, she couldn't accuse him. What would she even say? That card wasn't supposed to be an ace? That would just expose her as the real cheater. More importantly, the student council didn't investigate cheating. One of this school's core gambling rules was, cheating is not forbidden. In the world of winners and losers, being tricked only proves you're stupid. That's the student council's motto. And now, she owed 500 million yen. There was no way to recover from that. Make your choice, Nana. Rinji spoke as he looked at Nana, who was trembling, drenched in cold sweat. Pay it back within a year, or die. Don't worry. There's no interest. That might sound generous, but 500 million yen was an astronomical amount. Even without interest, it was impossible for her to repay. Let alone gather that much money. Rinji had taken all her capital. Even in this school where gambling was allowed, she couldn't afford to bet anymore. She was completely ruined. If you can't choose, let me choose for you. Rinji smiled, took his knife back from Ayam, and placed it against Nana's pale neck. Like I said before, once you're dead, the debt is wiped clean. You won't die with regrets. With the cold blade against her neck and the strange looks from her classmates, Nana was overwhelmed. The pain from her pierced palm caused cold sweat to pour from her body. Thud. Eventually, everything went black and she collapsed, fainting. Not a single person stepped up to help her. From the moment she lost, she had already become a housepet in the eyes of her so-called friends. None of her classmates wanted to be around a housepet. TCH. Rinji put the knife back in his pocket, picked up the 10 million yen Ayam had used to repay her debt, and headed for the classroom door. Send her to the infirmary. She can't escape her decision. What is it? Thank you so much. Behind him, Ayam bowed at a 90-degree angle, full of gratitude. Rinji had freed her from Nana's control. If not for Rinji, her future would have been forced into the adult industry, entertaining clients with no hope for a better life. No need to thank me. I already said, anyone who comes to the anti-gambling club, I'll help. Rinji smiled and handed her a document. This is the anti-gambling agreement. There's also a withdrawal form. Rinji said, once you sign this, you can't gamble again. That's what we agreed on, right? Yes. Ayam took the documents, and Rinji handed her a pen. She quickly signed the anti-gambling agreement, but hesitated on the withdrawal form. Takuman-kun. Yeah? I don't want to quit school just yet. Ayam said. Huh? Rinji blinked. If you don't quit, what do you plan to do? This school is nothing but gambling. I want to join the anti-gambling club. Rinji looked at her and saw that the timid look behind her glasses had changed. She now had a firm, resolute expression. It was like she was a different person. You sure? I'm sure. Ayam said calmly, unlike before. There are still too many people in this school who need to be brought down. You probably need help, and even if I'm not much use, I can at least help spread the message. Fine. Rinji smiled. You're in, my new club member. Thank you. After settling Ayam's situation, Rinji found Nanami in the clubroom, and the two headed toward the classroom. Of course, Rinji wasn't going to class. He never planned to from the start. He just needed to grab their bags and return to the clubroom to make some posters for the anti-gambling club. He only had 1 month in this school world. Even though he was dragged here because of Momobami's tricks, Rinji never once thought, I'll just bear it for a month and leave. Since he was here, he had to stir things up. Either turn this place into a proper school with no gambling, or into a living hell. Good or bad. Rinji had no plans to leave empty-handed. Rinji, is Nubri joining the club? Yeah, she's our new member. That makes 3 of us in the anti-gambling club now. Rinji smiled. As vice president, make sure you take care of the newcomer, okay? Understood. Finding out another girl had joined the club, Nanami let out a small sigh. When they reached the classroom, she hesitated at the door for a few seconds before summoning the courage to open it. In the past, she had constantly been bullied by students here, which made entering the classroom a terrifying experience. But now, with Rinji beside her, that fear had somewhat lessened. Click. This is. The moment the door opened, Nanami gasped and covered her mouth in shock. Rinji entered right after her, and his expression turned dark in an instant. Both his and Nanami's school bags had been slashed up with scissors. The contents were strewn across the floor, ruined and scattered. Takuman-kun. Without responding to her, Rinji stepped into the classroom, his voice low. Who did this? No one answered. The students kept busy with their own things, but the occasional snickers didn't escape Rinji's ears. Nanami, step outside for a bit. Okay. She hesitated but stepped out. The moment she left, Rinji shut the door behind her. And locked it. Chapter 273, Do you know what you just did? Rinji, this is your first day here, but you've stirred up more trouble than this school's seen in years. In the student council office, Rana Yamazaki munched on a lollipop while playing on her handheld console, not even looking up at Rinji. She didn't care. But the rest of the student council was drenched in cold sweat as they stared at Rinji sitting calmly at the conference table. Outside, sirens blared. Ambulances pulled into the school one after another. Under the guidance of medics, bloodied students were wheeled out of the building one by one and loaded into the ambulances. Rinji lit a cigarette. Honestly, I found it strange from the moment I got here. No matter what happens in this school, the outside world doesn't seem to interfere. I guess your president Momobami really knows her stuff. Sealing this school off from society with the influence and money of the Momobami clan. Exactly right. Rana smiled, finally looking up. This school prioritizes gambling. Even dangerous games like Russian roulette are allowed. The outside world can't touch us. That's what the president created. So she's basically a dictator or emperor here. Rinji said, handing Rana a giant lollipop. She accepted it and immediately popped it into her mouth. With his head wrapped in bandages like a mummy, Kid trembled. Even if society can't interfere. Rinji, what you did today is way too extreme. What did I do? You're seriously asking? A whole class. 35 students. All sent to the ICU. When the medics arrived and entered the classroom, they were shocked. Scattered stationery, overturned desks, bloodstains on the walls and floor. Students lying motionless, some barely conscious. Boys and girls alike, all severely injured. Don't worry. Momobami will clean it up. Realized Renji's every move was aimed at making life difficult for Momobami Kairari. Logically, should have been pleased. If something happened to her, he'd have a shot at the top seat. But with Rinji here, even if he became president, Rinji could just knock him right back down. Tell me then. Said, glancing nervously at the injured students. What was your reason for beating up an entire class? You interrogating me? And no, of course not. Trying to calm his fear, adjusted his glasses over the bandages. Just curious. You dragged me all the way to the student council room just to ask that? You think I've got time to waste? No. Rinji was a pain to talk to. But since I'm here, I'll explain. He flicked some ash from his cigarette. When I returned to the classroom, someone had slashed my bag. My stuff was scattered and trampled. And did you find out who did it? Nope. I asked, but no one answered. So you beat them all up? Every single one? And sent them all to the ICU? Yeah. His hand began to tremble. What kind of person is this? The culprit was definitely in that class, and since no one spoke up, I treated them all as accomplices. Rinji said. Besides, by beating everyone, the culprit couldn't escape. Takuman-kun, do you know what your actions are called? Sayaka asked. The merciful revenge. That's not it at all. You're insane. A total lunatic. She shouted. You lapdog of Momobami, calm down. I showed immense restraint. Those kids are still alive. Rinji pulled out his backpack. The one that had been slashed to bits now looked brand new, not a single tear. Good thing I fixed it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking at coup. I'd be sending those punks to Africa, with a 7-man team to carry their coffins. The school allows gambling, but not violence. Funny. I allow violence, but forbid gambling. Rinji scoffed. Didn't I make it clear? My rules take precedence now. Igarashi, if you bring up your school's rules again, I'll... Gulp. Sayaka swallowed nervously, trying to stay composed. What are you planning to do? Don't worry. I won't do anything to you. Huh? I'll take it all out on Momobami clan. No. If you're mad, take it out on me. Don't go after the president. Seemed intrigued by that. Momobami Kairari held the top seat of the school, but wanted that spot too. If Renji only had a grudge with Momobami. Takuman, if we piss you off, are you going to target the president? Who knows? Rinji glanced at coldly. If you keep yapping in front of me, I'll bash your damn skull in. Without waiting for a response, Rinji stood up. That's enough talk. If you've got more to say, come find me. Don't make me drag myself all the way here again. Or next time, you're all going to the hospital. Chapter 274, Russian Roulette, huh? Rinji, you're leaving already? As Rinji stood, Rana finally looked away from her console. Yeah. If you want snacks, just come by the anti-gambling club. Okay. In the student council, Rana was the only one who could talk to Rinji like a normal person. Her airheaded personality made her immune to fear, and her childlike appearance made it hard for Rinji to be harsh with her. Though she looked like a kid, she was a third year. 2 years older than Rinji. Hey. A girl suddenly stood up. Student Council Beautification Council, Midari Ikishima. Blind in one eye, with a nail embedded in her face, she approached Rinji with a creepy smile. Besides Kairari and Rana, she was the only other council member who wasn't afraid of Rinji. Unlike Kairari's scheming or Rana's obliviousness, Midari had been interested in Rinji since the first time he used violence. What do you want? Midari let out a chilling giggle, then pulled a revolver from under her skirt and pointed it at Rinji's head. Midari, what the hell are you doing? The other council members panicked. Screamed. He had always hated this unhinged girl and never understood why Kairari let her into the council. This woman, just like Renji, was not normal. Renji narrowed his eyes at the revolver pointed at him. That's real, isn't it? Of course it is. Midori said, her face flushed and twisted in excitement. Renji, I've had my eye on you since the moment you got here. You're just like me, aren't you? Huh? You've had enough of the boring gambling here at school too, right? How about we play something else? Something else? Renji looked at the gun pointed at his forehead and burst out laughing. I get it. Russian roulette, huh? That's a fresh twist. Of course. It's so much fun. With a manic smile on her face, Midori stroked the eye patch covering her left eye. After I lost to the president, I was told to pay with an eye. The surgery was supposed to be the next day, but I just took out my own eyeball with a pen. That's when I realized. Money means nothing in gambling. What matters is pain. Her expression contorted with ecstasy, but Renji remained completely unfazed. He calmly reached up, grabbed her wrist, and disarmed her with a swift motion. Opening the revolver's cylinder, he found a single bullet loaded among the 6 chambers. Smith & Wesson PC-44, firing 11.17 mm custom rounds. So your school even stocks firearms, huh? You know this model? I used to sell them. Renji chuckled and pulled 2 more bullets out of his pocket. Funny coincidence. I happen to have 2.44 rounds on me. Who the hell just happens to carry bullets in their pocket? Ignoring the remark, Renji loaded the 2 bullets into the gun, closed the cylinder, and handed the revolver back to Midori. Go ahead. Pull the trigger. Gladly. Sayaka giggled and once again aimed the gun at Renji's head. But are you sure about this? You originally had a 1 in 6 chance to survive. Now it's 50-50. You're mistaken, Midori. Renji said with a narrow smile. My survival rate is 100%. Yours, on the other hand, is 50%. He pointed to his head. If the trigger fires a bullet, he'll let her live. But if nothing happens, he'll slit her throat with the small knife in his pocket. Wait, are you really going to get blood all over the student council office? Shut up. Renji interrupted. Or you're next. Covered his head in despair. Letting these 2 maniacs face off was a recipe for disaster. Meanwhile, Midori trembled with excitement. She looked at Renji, unflinching despite having a gun aimed at his head. And her face flushed red. Her knees pressed together. You really are the best man ever. She pulled the trigger. Bang. The shot thundered through the room, smoke filling the air. It was a live round. The student council members all shut their eyes, expecting to see Renji lying in a pool of blood. You got lucky. Renji's voice rang out. Their eyes snapped open in shock. Renji stood unharmed, holding the smoking bullet between his fingertips. Midori's gun still smoked. Really now? With a 50 out of 50 chance, failing to hit me would mean your luck is garbage. Renji flicked the bullet aside. I told you, didn't I? My survival rate is 100%. What the hell are you? No idea. I guess I'm still technically human. He didn't look like one. From that moment on, the student council members began to see Renji as something far more dangerous than before. Alright, game's over. I'm heading out now. Wait. It was Midori again. She handed the revolver back to Renji. Now it's your turn. Aren't you happy you survived? This is a gamble. Midori laughed wildly. You can't stop after just 1 shot. You haven't pulled the trigger yet. Fine. Renji accepted the gun. You really have a death wish, don't you? Midori's forehead was sweating, but her manic smile didn't fade. She wasn't interested in money or winning. She was chasing the high of gambling with her life. Experiencing life and death directly. Only then did she feel truly alive. If you want to die so badly, go to a war zone. Only in a place reeking of gunpowder and rotting corpses will you truly understand. Renji pointed the gun at her. Just how precious life is. Bang. Chapter 275, Alive and Kicking. Good morning, Renji. Morning, Nanami. It was Renji's second day at Hyaka Private Academy. He and Nanami met at the anti-gambling club room and exchanged greetings. Why weren't they in their own classroom? Simple. There was no class anymore. Word had spread throughout the school that on his first day, Renji had hospitalized an entire class of students. People were no longer just curious about him. They were terrified. Even more so because the student council hadn't done anything about it. And naturally, the new anti-gambling club had drawn more attention as a result. That said, not all students from class Tsubaki Year 2 were in the hospital. 2 slipped through the cracks. One had his eye stabbed by Renji. The other was a man named Gawatari Jun. You know this Gawatari guy? Renji asked. Yeah. Nanami trembled slightly and stroked her shoulder-length hair. "He's the one who cut my hair. Said he wanted to try what it felt like to cut someone else's hair. After I became a pet, he'd gang up on me with others. Take my money, beat me. It was constant." "I see." Renji silently nodded, then took out a file with Kawatari's details and marked an X over his photo. Knock knock knock. The door rattled. "Come in," Renji said. The door opened, and Ayam peeked her head in timidly. Renji, I'm here. I'm not late, right?" "No. Technically, you didn't even have to come. Nanami and I are only here because our class doesn't exist anymore." "Oh. Well, since you're here, come in. Why are you standing in the doorway?" Renji gave her a puzzled look as she lingered. Bang. Before Ayam could respond, the clubroom door burst open. "Renji. I came to play with you." It was Midori Ikishima. Renji frowned slightly, clearly annoyed. "I thought you'd still be in bed today." "Ha ha, it was just a gunshot wound. A day's rest and—" "Ow ow ow." She clutched her stomach mid-sentence. Yesterday, during their game of Russian roulette, Renji had shot her. But the bullet wasn't fatal. It had avoided all major organs and arteries and lodged in a non-lethal part of her body. Renji had tampered with the gunpowder amount himself. To ensure the shot landed perfectly in a non-lethal zone, he calculated the firing angle, distance, humidity, and wind direction. This level of precision could only come from someone like Renji, who had once been a sniper. His goal had been simple: to give Midori a brush with death. Most people, after such an experience, would undergo a dramatic shift in personality and behavior. But, looking at the smiling Midori, who had recovered and come right back, Renji realized he had miscalculated. Of course. This was a girl who gouged out her own eye. No normal method was going to work on her. "What do you want?" "I came to play with you, obviously." "I don't want to play. Go back to your student council." "Nope. I quit the council." "Huh. The council's too boring. You're way more interesting." She leaned over his desk, putting her face close to his. "I want to join your anti-gambling club." "No." "Why not?" "This club helps people quit gambling." "It's not your playground." "Ugh, so boring." Midori ruffled the back of her head in frustration. "I was hoping to do something fun with you later." "Forget it. You should focus on getting that bullet out of your body first." "No way." Midori suddenly clutched her stomach, her face flushed red as her body writhed. "This pain was given to me by Renji. In that moment, I truly felt death. And the way you looked at me when you pulled the trigger, like I was trash. Ah. This is what I've been searching for. I want to keep this bullet inside me forever, wrapped in the embrace of my warm flesh and blood." Renji crossed his fingers and rested them on the bridge of his nose, expressionless as he stared at the disturbingly smiling Midori. No doubt about it. She was a pervert. At that moment, Midori noticed a file on the desk with Kawatari Jun's information and asked curiously, "Are you investigating this guy?" "Yeah, I was planning to look into him today. He used to be in class Tsubaki of Year 2, but since that class no longer exists, he was transferred to another class." Namishima explained. "His father's a county councilor. The student councils kept his records from way back. What does the student council want with his file? If we can make him a livestock through debt, we can control his father." "I bet that's what Kairi was planning," she said. The student councils used similar methods to deal with rich or influential students before. Cut off from the outside world, manipulating everything with their own rules. Looks like it's time to reassess Momobami. Why had Kairi brought him to this school? Why did she vanish the moment he arrived? Was her family involved somehow? Renji didn't know. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't care to. In his heart, he had already branded Kairi as the enemy. Everything he was doing now, picking fights, protecting livestock, founding the anti-gambling club, was just to disgust her. Disrupting the ecosystem of this school in a single month. That was Renji's goal. Chapter 276, Chain of Suspicion. I spent all last night designing these flyers for the anti-gambling club. Renji took out a stack of flyers from his bag and placed them on the desk. Ayam and Midori picked one up and glanced at it. Large text read, "Still troubled by debt? Suffering because you can't pay tribute to the student council? Join the anti-gambling club and reclaim your future. We'll clear your debts for free. For the sake of your future, the anti-gambling club opens its doors to every student who wants to escape the abyss." In the bottom right corner was a chibi version of Renji giving a thumbs up. For free? Midori was confused by the word free. At the private Hyaku Academy, no one did charity work. It says free, but what it really means is, we'll find out who won money from the indebted student and get that money back with interest. Renji said with a smile. Say Nana won 10 million yen from Ayam. I give Ion 10 million yen, then go make trouble for Nana. That sounds pretty roundabout. Cut the chatter and start handing them out. Huh? Me? You wanted to join the anti-gambling club, right? Being a member means doing something. Go. TCH. I came to hang out with you, not work. Midori clicked her tongue in annoyance but obediently took a stack of flyers and left. I'll help too. Ion took the remaining flyers and followed. Outside, Midori walked down the school corridor and ran into Ion. You're part of Rinji's club, right? Why'd you join? Because Rinji helped pay off my debts, so I joined the anti-gambling club. Ion replied, blushing and pushing up her glasses nervously. Also, I think what Rinji's doing is really right, so I wanted to help. I thought you joined just to be around him. That too, maybe. Rinji's got some serious charm. Midori laughed. Midori-san. You used to be the head of the student council's beautification council. Why did you leave and join the anti-gambling club? Ion asked curiously. At Hyaku Academy, student council members were essentially the ruling class. Untouchable, privileged, and living off the students' tribute money. At the bottom were the livestock. Stripped of rights and dignity, frequently bullied, punished for resisting. Ordinary students could bully the livestock, but had to pay the council monthly or become livestock themselves. The student council sat at the top, doing nothing but reaping the benefits of others. So for someone like Midori to leave the council and join Rinji's club was puzzling. Me, huh? Midori touched the spot where she'd been shot. The bullet still inside gave her a lingering pain. But the pain brought her joy. I want Dakuman Rinji to kill me. What? He's not like the student council scum who only bully livestock, or the power-hungry cowards obsessed with status. I could see it in his eyes. He's killed before. Her eyes lit up with excitement, bloodshot with obsession. If I stay close to him, someday that killing intent will explode. And I'll be there to witness it. Midori was twisted. After losing an eye to Kairari, the pain of gouging it out herself filled her with pleasure. That pleasure became a fetish. She got off on pain. The bullet Rinji fired yesterday brought her face to face with death. That brush with mortality satisfied her deepest desires. She wanted Rinji to torment her, abuse her, even kill her. That's why she joined his club. She believed he was the only one in this school capable of doing it. I guess. I really don't understand you, Midori-san. Ion instinctively put some distance between them. She was now certain. Midori was a complete pervert. You don't need to understand me. Midori lowered her head and looked at the flyer in her hand, muttering to herself. I don't even understand Dakuman Rinji. With his personality, no way he'd do something for free. At that moment, Ion, who was walking not far behind her, suddenly stopped. Noticing this, Midori turned to see Ion's eyes had turned sharp behind her glasses. As if she were a different person. I think I've figured out Rinji's plan. Huh? It's a chain of suspicion. Ion adjusted her glasses and explained to the confused Midori. If you were a student here, and heard there was a club that helped students pay off debts for free, what would you do? Of course I'd find someone to gamble with big time. Someone else will cover my losses anyway. And that's the problem. Ion continued. Nana ended up in a really bad spot. That means after Rinji clears the debts, he goes after the one who profited. So if someone challenges you to a gamble, would you still accept? The anti-gambling club pays the loser's debt, then punishes the winner. So students will become cautious. If someone challenges you and loses, they could run to the anti-gambling club and sick Rinji on you. If you challenge someone and win, they might do the same. In other words, losers benefit. Winners get screwed. Soon, everyone would fear gambling altogether, worried the club might come for them. And in this web of suspicion, Rinji could purge the school of gambling in record time. Chapter 277, The Demon from Shuchin Hello? You'll be handling this matter. Try to speed things up a little. Yeah, good. Standing in the clubroom, Rinji held his phone to his ear, giving instructions to someone on the other end. Once he was done, he slipped the phone back into his pocket. Alright, let's go. Huh? Go where? Seeing Rinji about to leave, Nanami quickly followed him. Let's see if there's anyone who needs help from the anti-gambling club. Consider it door-to-door service. Rinji replied. Just target those labeled as livestock by the student council. I'm coming too. Rinji opened the door and stepped out, with Nanami following right behind. This was Rinji's second day at the school. For him, the only meaningful thing about the first day was establishing the anti-gambling club. That alone had laid the groundwork for everything that was to come. Of course, things like gouging out a student's eye, injuring an entire class, turning Manny Udict into a mummy, and shooting Midori Kishima were all brushed off as harmless little incidents. At least, That's how Rinji saw it. Walking down the hallway, the black uniform of Shuchen Academy that he wore made him stand out sharply. Given everything that happened yesterday, every single thing Rinji had done at this closed-off school was enough to cause a stir. So now, nearly every student who caught sight of his distinct Shuchen uniform quickly stepped aside in fear. Did you see that? I think that's him. The demon from Shuchen? That's him? I heard he's the one who destroyed Class Tsubaki in year 2. I heard 12 students suffered full-body fractures. Terrifying. Who's that girl with him? She looks like one of the livestock. The students whispered among themselves about Rinji, deliberately keeping their voices low so he wouldn't hear them. I heard there was a survivor from their class yesterday. I think his name was Jun Kawatari. They say he transferred to Class Hana today. The moment Rinji heard that name, his gaze shot toward the two whispering girls. The instant his eyes locked onto them, the two girls broke into a cold sweat, trembling as they saw Rinji walking straight toward them. Hey! Don't kill me. I'm just here to ask about someone named Kawatari. Do you know where he is right now? Without paying any attention to the two girls now huddled together in fear, Rinji asked the question plainly. He's in year 2, Class Hana. Thanks. Rinji nodded and turned to Nanami behind him. Let's go. Yes. After the two left, the two girls collapsed to the ground and let out a sigh of relief. So scary. He was looking for Kawatari. Is he planning to finish off the last survivor too? That's just cruel. The students continued whispering about Rinji, but that was no longer within his area of concern. Year 2 Class Hana. The same class that Jabami Yumko was in. Rinji found that gambling-obsessed girl extremely irritating, which was why he hadn't chosen this class during the initial class placements. But because of that decision, the students in this class had temporarily avoided disaster. Otherwise, it would have been Class Hana Rinji destroyed instead of Class Tsubaki. When Rinji walked into the Class Hana classroom, the scene inside was the same as Tsubaki or any other class. Everyone was immersed in gambling. Various gambling games were being held in every corner of the cramped classroom. A human betting match had just ended. One student scratched his head in frustration after losing money, and when he looked up, he spotted Rinji standing at the door. His eyes widened instantly, and he took 2 steps back in fear. BL black uniform. It's the demon of Shuchen. What? His shout echoed through the classroom, and every student looked up at the door. Regardless of whether their games had ended, they all stood and backed into the corners. Rinji stood in the doorway, a wide space instantly forming before him. His infamy had spread throughout the school. Without exception, all the students assumed Rinji had come to beat them up. Satom, you go. Eh? Why me? Are you dumb? You're the only livestock in the class. A beautiful blonde twin-tailed girl was shoved out from the crowd. She turned around and was met with the cold stares of her classmates. Knowing there was no way out, the girl clenched her teeth, silently vowing to get revenge on these people one day. Slowly, she walked toward Rinji. She had heard rumors about Rinji. And the more they spread, the more exaggerated they became. Originally, Rinji became known in the school for injuring an entire class, but now, the stories had taken on various forms. Some said this transfer student used to be an assassin. Others claimed he was a mercenary who had fought in wars overseas. There were even tales that he was the son of a massive conglomerate CEO. In any case, the rumors became increasingly outlandish. And yet, they weren't exactly wrong. As Satom looked at Rinji, her heart pounded with unease. She was absolutely terrified of someone with such a fearsome reputation. Takuman-san. She bowed slightly to Rinji and forced a smile. Welcome to Class Hana. My name is Satom Mary. May I ask what brings you to our class? Rinji had been scanning the room for Jabami Yumko's presence, puzzled that she wasn't there. Seeing a girl greet him, he replied, Satom-san, I heard Kawatari transferred to your class. Do you know where he is? Kawatari. Mary panicked. She had no idea where that student who transferred from Class Tsubaki had gone. He always disappeared after class. What do I do? What if I say I don't know and get killed? So, you don't know? As he looked at the frightened Satom Mary, Rinji noticed the badge hanging from her chest that read Stray Cat. Your livestock. Yes. I see. Are you interested in joining the anti-gambling club? Huh? Seeing Mary's stunned expression, Rinji smiled and said, our club is dedicated to helping students in debt. If you join us, we'll pay off everything you owe, and the student council won't demand tribute from club members. That good? Of course. Rinji said with a smile. The condition is, you must quit gambling for good. Chapter 278, so you don't take me seriously, huh? You want me to join the anti-gambling club? That's right. Rinji replied. Join us, and all your debts will be cleared. Plus, you won't have to worry about the student council collecting payments anymore. As long as you give up gambling from now on. Mary lowered her head, conflicted. Without a doubt, what Renji offered was incredibly beneficial to her. She knew exactly how she had been treated ever since becoming livestock. Those classmates who once flattered her had turned on her instantly, tormenting her every day. Her desk was covered in insults. And because of her pretty looks, the newly transferred Kawatari kept harassing her. If she accepted Renji's help, she could be freed from the status of livestock. But was it really that simple? Can you really do that? Absolutely. No doubt about it. Even though I really want to be free of this hell, something this important to my life can't be decided carelessly. Mary said. Can I observe for a while? Of course. Anytime you decide to stop gambling, come find me. I'll settle your debts, no matter when. There was confidence in Renji's tone, which piqued Mary's curiosity. Why was he so certain? Was the student council really turning a blind eye to his rampage? Come to think of it, how come after all the chaos he caused yesterday, the student council hadn't punished him? Could it be, as the rumors say, that he has some unbelievable power behind him? Just as Renji was about to continue introducing the club's goals, he noticed something and walked toward the window. Several students were already huddled there, too scared to move. You. What are you? Move. He kicked aside the student blocking his path, then leaned out the window to look below. On the grass under the school building, he saw Jabami Yumko smiling sweetly at a boy who was approaching her with bad intentions. That boy was none other than Kawatari Jun, the one Renji had been looking for. Perfect? So that's where you were. Pulling his head back inside, Renji turned and left the classroom, calling out to Nanami, who was waiting outside, and headed toward the first floor. Inside the classroom, the students breathed a collective sigh of relief. That terrifying Grim Reaper had finally left. Mary stood in silence, pondering what Renji had said about the anti-gambling club. On the grassy area below the school building, Jabami Yumko smiled at Kawatari Jun. Kawatari-kun, right? Did you call me out here during break for something? I already heard about you back when I'm still in class Tsubaki, Jabami Yumko. Kawatari sneered. Didn't expect even you to fall and become livestock. Yumko had transferred in this term. She quickly rose to fame after defeating Mary, the star of Class Hana, in a gambling match. Her beauty also earned her many admirers. However, she had lost a game and racked up a debt of 310 million yen, thus becoming livestock. Yumko's fall shocked many. And excited others. At this school, livestock had no rights. That meant they could do anything they wanted to her. So? What exactly does Kawatari-kun want from me? What should I do with you? Kawatari grinned. Let's start with this, take off your clothes. Everything. Don't leave a single piece on. He said this in front of a crowd of boys. They were clearly intrigued, all staring at Yumko eagerly. Who wouldn't want to watch a beautiful girl strip? I think I'll pass. Yumko smiled. I don't have the habit of undressing for people I don't like. What? Kawatari's eyes turned cold. And besides, you're not my type. All you do is make me feel sick. Yumko added with a sweet smile. You bitch. Did you forget your place? You're livestock. Furious, Kawatari grabbed Yumko by the collar, clearly intending to get rough. Hey. You're Kawatari Jun, right? Huh. Just as Kawatari was about to act, Renji appeared in front of him, with a nervous Nanami trailing behind. And you are? Annoyed, Kawatari turned to look. Only for Yumko to break free and rush to Renji's side, hugging his arm. Takumin-kun, you came to find me? Move. I'm not here for you. Renji brushed her hand off coldly. Kawatari glared at Renji, irritated by Yumko's sudden affection toward him. And then he noticed Tsubame Nanami. The same girl he used to bully. She was here. Great. He could take out his anger on her. Nanami. Get over here. You. Nanami shivered. Kawatari's presence still struck fear in her. Didn't you hear me? You want a beating? Hey, punk. You really don't take me seriously, huh? As Nanami trembled, Renji stepped forward and blocked her with his body. You bastard. When Kawatari got a proper look at Renji, he suddenly lost his words. Even though he hadn't been in class yesterday, he had heard the rumors about the demon of Shuchen. And that black uniform matched the legend. The man who beat an entire class into the hospital. The one who annihilated Class Tsubaki. The lunatic. He let out a tch. Turned around, and walked away. He knew there was nothing he could do while Renji was here. I'll let you go for now, but later. Bang. Kawatari fell to the ground, clutching his bleeding foot and screaming in pain. In Renji's hand was the pistol he'd gotten from Midari the day before, the barrel still smoking. He stepped forward, grabbed Kawatari by the hair without caring about his wails, and yanked him up. I came all the way here to find you, and you turn around and walk away. Are you looking down on me? As he spoke, he aimed at Kawatari's other kneecap and pulled the trigger. Bang. Ah. Chapter 279, Karma Rinji-kun. What is it, Secretary Fujiwara? One afternoon, Rinji was tapping away on a keyboard in the student council office, sorting through the financial report for the quarter. Fujiwara was lying on the desk in front of him, staring at him as he worked. You've been in the student council for a while now, haven't you? It has been some time. Rinji continued typing, the keys clicking away. He didn't even glance at Fujiwara. I just think it's kind of strange. What's strange? Ishigami-kun joined the council later than you, but he's blended in really well with everyone. Fujiwara absent-mindedly twirled her pink hair with her finger. You talk to us often enough, but I always get this weird feeling. Like you don't really fit in with the group. Click. His fingers paused mid-typing. Of course, don't get me wrong, Rinji-kun. It's just a silly feeling I had, nothing serious. Fujiwara giggled and waved it off. Rinji smiled bitterly after a short silence. Sometimes I'm surprised at how accurate your weird feelings are. There are moments when I really feel I don't fit in with the council. Eh? Why is that? Because the world I grew up in is very different from yours. Rinji smiled. Even though I've enjoyed my time in Japan with the council, and I'm thankful the president let me join. A different world? Fujiwara tilted her head. What do you mean by that? I grew up in a place very different from yours. That environment shaped how I act and deal with people. And it's far from normal. Rinji looked into Fujiwara's curious, wide eyes. I've never fully blended into the council because deep down, I know there's something that separates me from you all. What is that something? The karma. Born from the way I deal with others. Kawatari-jun, I gotta say. You sure run fast. You barely survived the Tsubaki class and already dared to mess with another group. Are you that confident I wouldn't lay a hand on you? Or do you just believe in the council's protection too much? In a spacious classroom in Hayaka Private Academy used for gambling. On one side of the table sat Rinji. On the other, Kawatari, now confined to a wheelchair. Kawatari's expression was grim. The moment he'd been shot, he'd passed out from the pain. When he came to, he was already facing Rinji. A shot to the knee meant he would never walk again. You. What are you? My name is Takuman Rinji. I'm sure you've heard of me. Rinji said with a smile. And I've heard something interesting about you too. Word is, you've been abusing the school's livestock of no human rights rule to harass female students labeled as livestock. Is that true? You're here to take revenge for them. Bang. With a gunshot and scream, Kawatari's right ring finger was blown off, blood dripping onto the floor. Don't answer a question with another question, you filthy frog piss of a man. Rinji said coldly. To answer you honestly, I don't know those girls. Except for Tsubame Nanami. Ugh. Kawatari clutched his bleeding hand, trembling with fear. Wondering why, huh? Fine, I'll be kind enough to tell you. Rinji stood from his chair, grabbed Kawatari by the hair, and pulled his face close. Because it's fun. What? Just like you enjoyed tormenting the weak, I enjoy watching you scream in front of me. Different people, different hobbies. Be a little understanding. Thud. Rinji let go, letting Kawatari collapse. He returned to his seat, picked up the deck of cards on the gambling table, and started shuffling. I heard it was you who ordered my and Nanami's bags to be shredded that day. The ones I hospitalized told me before they passed out. Still sent them to the hospital, though. Too late. Rinji placed the shuffled deck on the table, his expression turning twisted. They say you couldn't stand me helping Nanami. Wanted to teach me what happens to those who help livestock at this school. I'll give you credit. Great idea. But you made a fatal mistake. You tried to take on an enemy without knowing enough about them. In war, intel is everything. What do you want? If it's money, my family. No, it's not about money. Your life has a greater use. Looking at the trembling Kawatari, Rinji snapped his fingers. The door opened. In walked a girl in a mascot costume. Rona Yamazuki, a third-year and member of the Hayaka Student Council. What is it, Rinji-kun? Calling me out from the council room? I need a witness for a match. Rinji smiled, glancing at the sniffling Kawatari. A duel with this entertaining classmate. But if you want me to witness, we have to follow council rules, right? And you hate those rules. What rules? Both parties have to agree to the gamble, or it doesn't count. Runa said as she chewed her lollipop. Even if you force someone to agree, it still counts. Strange. Doesn't your school have people who force others to gamble? Forcing agreement is still agreement. Got it. Rinji pulled a phone from his pocket and slid it over to Kawatari. The moment Kawatari saw the photo, his eyes widened in shock. On the screen, his father, the current prefectural governor, was shown with a gun pointed at his head. Chapter 280, The Sacrificial Piece. Finally done handing out all those flyers. Thanks for the hard work. After handing out the last flyer, Midori wiped sweat from her forehead. Not because she was tired, just from the monotony. Ayam had also finished passing hers out. They weren't just standing in crowded hallways giving them to random people. They specifically targeted students who looked like potential candidates. Especially those wanting to quit gambling. Many were students labeled as livestock, or came from poor families. As for how they identified the poor students, Midori had been on the student council. She wasn't into this work, but she knew how to get info. Ugh, this is so annoying. Instead of looking for quitters, I'd rather play Russian roulette. Midori scratched the back of her head, clearly annoyed. That's dangerous. Ayam said gently. I don't think it's a good idea. Huh? What kind of nonsense is that? It's fun because it's dangerous. Ayam gave up. She couldn't communicate with this person. As they passed the field near the school building, they saw a group of students staring at a large screen. On it, Rinji and the wheelchair-bound Kawatari were facing each other. Rinji? What's he doing there? Midori frowned. Run is there too? Looks like they're gambling. Ayam whispered. Gambling? Isn't he from the anti-gambling club? Why would he start a gamble himself? Maybe someone who came to the club for help got scammed. That's how he got money from Rana back then to save me. TCH. What a bore. Midori clicked her tongue. Ayam kept staring at the screen, her head lowering as she started thinking. Something didn't feel right. If Renji was just helping someone, why not gamble in a classroom like usual? Why go all out with a school-wide broadcast and even invite the council? Could it be to promote the club? Then the screen showed Renji sliding the phone to Kawatari, ending on the image of Kawatari's father held at gunpoint. He's threatening someone's family. So cruel. Doesn't the council care about this kind of thing? They should, Ayam thought. And why even broadcast something like this? Her eyes widened. She finally realized something she hadn't considered before. This might be Rinji's real plan. Hey, let's go. This crap's boring. Whoa, what's with that look in your eyes? Midori turned and saw Ayam's eyes sharpen like daggers, her face suddenly intense. Even she looked intrigued. What's wrong? Want to watch Rinji win this gamble in style? No. Ayam's tone was indifferent as she lightly pushed her glasses with her finger. This isn't a gamble. It's just part of Renji-kun's plan. Huh? I misunderstood from the start. Winning or losing was never the point. Ayam stared at the large screen, her gaze locked on Rinji. The moment this gamble began, Renji-kun had already won. What? What do you mean? Midori questioned her in confusion, but Ayam simply shook her head, her tone still cold. If my guess is right, this student named Kawatari Jun will die. And it will happen under the watchful eyes of the entire student body. You actually. Kawatari, you can make your choice now. Rinji said with a smile. Will you bet or not? Kawatari had never imagined his father would one day have a gun pointed at him. His arrogance at school came largely from relying on his father, the county governor. He never thought that powerful figure would be threatened like this. In reality, Rinji hadn't actually targeted his father. The photo he showed was fake, photoshopped. Kidnapping a county governor wasn't something you could pull off quickly. But Kawatari couldn't tell. Give me a straight answer, Kawatari. Will you bet? Bet what? A lot of good things. Rinji grinned. For example, your broken leg. I have the means to fully restore it. And if you win, you'll receive 500 million yen. Very tempting. Even without the 500 million, just the chance to restore his leg was enough to shake him. No one wants to spend the rest of their life in a wheelchair. There are a lot of benefits, but Kawatari, do you really have something of equal value to bet against me? Can you offer something worth 500 million? No. Of course he couldn't. At most, he had about 10 million yen at his disposal. No worries. You do have something else worth that much. What? Rinji smiled slightly and said, your life, of course. Huh? Pause the match. Rana suddenly spoke up. According to the current student council rules, betting one's life isn't allowed, because... No need for explanations, Yamazuki-san. Rinji said coolly. You're just the judge. You don't need to concern yourself with anything else. Rana stared coldly at Rinji for a few seconds, then suddenly smirked. This was your plan all along, wasn't it? Even I was just a pawn. Of course. You're really this eager to take down President Kairari? Yeah. After all, your Hayaka private academy isn't nearly as fun as Shuchin. Rinji turned to her with a smile. This is one of the rare games I'm actually enjoying. Chapter 281, Open Conspiracy. Kawatari was just a sacrificial piece. Or rather, anyone could have been the sacrifice. On the surface, the gamble between Rinji and Kawatari looked like a straightforward showdown, but Kawatari was never the real target. Kawatari and even Rana, who acted as the judge, were just pieces on the board. Rinji's real goal was to force Momobami Kairari into action using this gamble. Damn it. Is no one going to stop them? In the student council office, Manny Udik slammed the desk in fury. If this gamble continues, the student council will be a joke. No. Worse, everything happening in this school will be exposed to the outside world. He wasn't the only one worried. The entire student council was terrified of what Rinji's gamble might bring. Thanks to Kairari's policies, very little was known about the inner workings of Hayako. Outsiders only knew that the school allowed gambling and had a long history. But what they didn't know was that the school had a rigid class hierarchy. Student status was determined by gambling prowess. There was even a brutal livestock system in place. Organ bets were also allowed. Yet no matter how cruel the school became, Kairari had never let any real deaths occur. Even the livestock were technically still alive. Because if someone died, outside attention would inevitably follow. Kairari's power could suppress news of injuries, but a death, especially the son of a county governor, would be impossible to bury. Rinji's actions were aimed at forcing Kairari out of hiding. If she didn't appear, Kawatari's death would plunge the school into chaos. If she did intervene, it would show the student council interfering in fair gambling, undermining their credibility. I misjudged everything. Manny Yuta clutched his head, his bandaged face hiding how grim he looked. I thought he was just a delinquent punk with no sense of law. But from the start, his target was the student council. No, the entire Hayako Academy. Is there no way to break the deadlock now? Asked Nishino to Inuriko. None at all. Manny Yuta replied coldly. According to Kairari's rules, the school doesn't support life-risking bets. But you saw the screen. Yamazuki didn't stop Rinji at all. That alone tells the students the council can't control him. Then should we intervene? Before anyone could act, Manny Yuta pointed at the big screen. On it, Rinji had a pistol on the table. The same one he used to shoot Kawatari, obtained from Midari. If we try, he'll shoot us. And if any of us die, the outside world will get involved immediately. He paused, shifting his gaze from the gun on Rinji's table to Rana. Yamazuki's presence also sent an important message to the students. What is it? Rinji wants every student to know. Even with the student council present, no one can stop him from breaking the rules. Do you realize what that means? No matter how this ends, the council's prestige and authority are already crumbling. Why was gambling so rampant here? Because everyone believed that if you lost, you had to pay up. Why? Because the council would enforce it. If a student couldn't pay, the council would pressure their family to sell assets to cover the debt. To the students, the council was absolute authority. And that authority was built on their strict adherence to rules. But now, Rinji shattered that trust. Like a country's credit collapsing and its currency losing value, the council's authority was devalued. And once students stopped trusting in gambling, the whole system would fall apart. From the moment this gamble began, Rinji had already won. Manny Yuta clenched his fists and laid his head on the table. After a moment, he looked up at Igarashi Sayaka, who was sweating coldly while staring at the screen. Hey, is there still no word from President Kairari? No word yet. Damn it, she's really... Forget it. Knowing that blaming Kairari now was pointless, Manny Yuta lowered his head in thought. Soon, he stood and headed for the door. Manny Yuta, where are you going? For a walk. He adjusted his glasses calmly. Oh right, Igarashi, when your president returns, pass along a message. What message? I'm quitting the student council. What? Sayaka jumped up. Quitting? At a time like this? Yes, precisely because it's this time. Manny Yuta said flatly. I've analyzed Renji's actions these past few days. I've figured out his aim. So. What now? I'm going to the anti-gambling club. You. What are you saying? Sayaka shouted. You're betraying the president? You can see it that way. But I'll give you and the rest of the council some advice. He said with a slight smile. The wise man adapts to the times. A quick analysis will tell you. Kairari can't win. With that, he opened the student council doors and walked out. Between being the player and the piece, I'd rather be the player. And if I can't be the player, then at least I'll be a piece on the winning side. Chapter 282, The Double Crosser. Well then, Let the game begin. Under Rinji's threat, Kawatari had no choice but to agree to this gamble that wagered his own life. The game was 5-card stud, with Rana acting as the dealer. Rana looked at the deck in her hands and let out a sigh. The pressure had fallen onto her shoulders. She could see through Rinji's plan clearly. This wasn't a simple gamble. It was an attack on the student council's credibility. Trying to stop it was pointless. The moment she was tricked into acting as the dealer, the council's reputation had already been damaged. The only thing she could do now was damage control. Reputation could be salvaged once Kayari returned. For now, her goal was to make sure Kawatari stayed alive. If Kawatari died, not only the student council, but the entire school would be thrown into crisis. Once external forces got involved, the student council would have no standing left. Of course, Rana believed that even if things reached that point, Kayari would find a way to handle it. Knowing Kayari well, Rana understood that her absence wasn't out of fear of Rinji. It was to prepare fully for the eventual showdown between them. This school had become the battleground between Kayari and Rinji. Every student was just a pawn to be sacrificed at will. Perhaps Kayari brought Rinji here knowing he would stir things up. That chaos was the very variable Kayari needed in this school. Crunch. Rana bit down on the lollipop in her mouth, a faint smile curling her lips. She knew. Things were about to get interesting. Then, I'll begin dealing the cards. With a smile, Rana shuffled the cards quickly and dealt 3 cards to both Kawatari and Rinji. According to the rules, they were supposed to bet after each card, but since Kawatari was betting his life, the betting phase was skipped. The cards were face down. Rinji glanced at his cards, a 5 of hearts, a 7 of hearts, and an 8 of spades. On the other side, Kawatari's expression was a mix of intense joy and nervousness. He couldn't hide it. He looked elated. Rinji glanced at Rana. You didn't cheat, did you? How could I? I'm a firm believer in fairness. That's good. She wasn't lying. She had dealt the cards normally, with no tricks. Even though she was working to help the student council, the best she could do now was minimize damage. And that meant ensuring Kawatari won and survived. If he lived, the council's credibility would only suffer temporarily. It could be repaired. But if Kawatari died, the fallout would be catastrophic. External systems would likely interfere, and only Kayari's full strength might resolve it. Still, Rana wasn't acting solely for the council. She, too, was curious to see who would ultimately win between Rinji and Kayari. Just as Rana prepared to deal the next cards, the door suddenly opened. Walking in was Igarashi Sayaka. She walked up to Rana and held out her hand. Yamazaki Rana, let me take over the dealing. Huh? Why? Rana tilted her head. I served as dealer and referee during the debt resolution convention. I'm more experienced. Sayaka said calmly. Of course, she didn't just come to deal. She had no choice. In her view, the best way to preserve the student council was to ensure Kawatari survived. The current state of the council was dire. Rana didn't care about the outcome. Midori Kishima had already left and joined Rinji, and Mani Udict had also defected to Rinji's side. Only Nishinotu and Yuriko remain loyal, and even she was likely only held back by fear of Kayari. A group made up of defectors, indifferent members, and those simply trying to survive. This council had started falling apart the moment Rinji arrived at the school. We must hold on until the president returns. Rana glanced up at Sayaka. Are you sure you can do it? Of course. Then. No. A loud voice interrupted them. Next to enter the room was Mani Yuta, his head still wrapped in bandages. He walked in and immediately blocked Sayaka from taking the cards. Mani Yuta. Sayaka gritted her teeth at the sight of the traitor who had betrayed them without hesitation. But Mani Yuta calmly adjusted his glasses and said, I've never heard of changing dealers mid-game. It's against the rules. You. Am I wrong? The match has already begun. Unless Yamazaki Rana collapses from health issues, the dealer cannot be replaced. Looking at Mani Yuta's composed expression, Sayaka realized he had fully aligned himself with Rinji. What does it matter? Seeing them argue, Rinji smiled at the table. If she wants to deal, I've got no problem with that. But. Rinji looked at Mani Yuta and gestured for him to come over. Mani Yuta obediently walked to Rinji's side. Rinji glanced at his cards and asked, What do you want? A wise bird chooses the right tree. Mani Yuta replied softly. You want to join the anti-gambling club? Please, President Rinji, grant me this chance. I was rude before. Mani Yuta bowed 90 degrees. Rinji didn't answer immediately. He pulled a cigarette from his pocket and put it in his mouth, then held the lighter out to Mani Yuta.